Chapter 534, Type 5 Mutant Beast. Chapter 534, Type 5 Mutant Beast. Seeing that line of information, Yuzhong finally heaved a sigh of relief. He then began to survey his surroundings carefully. The island is moving. As he looked around, he could feel it in his bones. Countless ripples were radiating outwards from the reef-like island beneath him. Could this island be an actual behemoth-type sea mutant beast? Yuzhong's heart turned cold as he looked at his feet. The eyes of perception must be targeted at a body part. To know for sure, I can only head to the edges of the island. He pondered for a while, before heading over to the corpse of the Type 4 mutant flame bird and began to cut up its body. It was by pure luck that Yuzhong had been able to kill such a tyrannical Type 4 mutant beast. If it had been a frontal clash, he would have been instantly decimated by its speed. Even the shield of light and the bronze spiritual bell would not have been of much use. Unfortunately for the Type 4 mutant flame bird, it belonged to the low defense category of mutant beasts. That was how it was finished in one blow by Yuzhong, who had been grabbing onto its body. Yuzhong began to let the blood out of the corpse of the flame bird, pouring them into large containers before keeping them inside his storage ring. He separated the blood, brain pulp, brain matter, bone marrows, and anything that he could squeeze out inside his storage ring. After that, he used his crocodile tooth saw blade to saw off those large talons. The talons of the flame bird had easily pierced the Type 3 mutant beast hide on Ji Qingwu's body. That was actually incredible, considering that not even cannons can damage the hides of Type 3 mutant beasts. The flame bird had an 80 long wingspan, and its talons were at least a meter. Even the black tooth blade and crocodile tooth saw blade that were among Yuzhong's best weapons could not match the sharpness of the talon. Yuzhong intended to forge a sharp machete from the talons. Using it might not gain any enhancements from killing his enemies, but it would be a powerful weapon to utilize. After harvesting all that he could from the corpse, he hesitated a little while before carefully proceeding towards one direction to the edge of the island. Level 118 Mutant Beast, Type 5 Dragon Whale Beast. It is of the Overlord level of the seas, and it is an incredibly terrifying mutant beast. Yuzhong had just taken a look and began to edge back carefully. He was afraid of being noticed by that Type 5 mutant beast. In such a vast ocean where there was no end in sight, the moment this Type 5 dragon whale beast entered the waters, Yuzhong would be in trouble. The water bodies of the earth were larger than the land mass, and the marine biology in the waters would definitely be more diverse and larger. Under such circumstances, the threat of these marine creatures was at least 100 times more dangerous than on land. If Yuzhong were to enter the waters, he would immediately be in danger. This was because his trump card Devil Flame was of no use in the water. Yuzhong returned to the biological armor containing Ji Qingwu to stand guard. The Type 5 Dragon Whale Beast was an overlord within the seas, and only other Type 5 mutant beasts would dare provoke it. No lower-rank beasts would be silly to get too close. Yuzhong stood like this on the island, not able to utilize any of his skills. He could only wait obediently on the behemoth's back with the biological armor on it, while reading a book out of boredom. Within Yuzhong's ring, there was a large supply of water and food, more than enough to last him for a year. After an indeterminate number of days, a huge wave suddenly swept towards the back of the Type 5 dragon whale beast. What's going on? Before Yuzhong had the chance to react, he was swept off the back of the Type 5 dragon whale beast and plunged into the deep blue sea. The biological armor, Ji Qingwu, had always been bound to Yuzhong's back with some spider silk. The moment he entered the water, the biological armor followed suit. Since Ji Qingwu was inside the pod, Yuzhong could not afford to put the pod into his storage ring, so he kept her outside. Upon submerging into the waters, he saw the beast, which was at least 1,000 meters long, with a jaw full of sharp teeth, currently engaged in a clash with a huge shark at least 800 m long. Both titans were currently snapping at and biting each other viciously. With them at the center, the resulting waves of their clash were constantly rippling out, churning the waters. Level 113 Mutant Beast, Type 5 Mutant Tiger Shark. One of the kings in the waters. Its nature is extremely aggressive. Yu Zhong saw the beasts engaged in mutual slaughter and hurriedly allowed the waves to carry him away from the vicinity. If it was on land, then it was a different matter. However, since they were helpless in the waters, he didn't dare stay to play the fisherman. If he was not careful, he might end up being finished off by the two behemoths. Right after he had floated about 100 meters away, his position was locked on by a huge mutant shark, and it immediately swam towards him. Level 46 Mutant Beast, Mutant Shark, a water-type mutant beast. Although Yu Zhong possessed a body that was 10 times more powerful than a person, he was unable to utilize his maximum potential in water. Even if his speed now exceeded the world champion prior to the apocalypse, he could not possibly outswim the mutant shark. In barely a few breaths, the mutant shark had reached Yu Zhong and was opening its jaws to chomp down on him. Before he was about to be bitten, Yu Zhong hurriedly activated his clone technique, and an identical clone appeared in the waters. Seeing the appearance of one more prey, the mutant shark was momentarily confused before it went for the one closer to it and snapped its jaws. On that clone, there was some spider silk that Yu Zhong had laid beforehand. With a thought, he retracted the silk, pulling himself towards the jaws of the mutant shark. The mutant shark saw another prey appear by its jaws and opened them to bite again. Yu Zhong immediately cast his gravity manipulation, causing a twofold gravitational force to weigh down on the mutant shark. The beast instantly sunk slightly, and its jaws snapped on nothing. Yu Zhong took the chance to get on the head of the mutant shark, wrapping his spider silk around its body. He then unleashed a single punch with all of his strength towards the head of the beast. The hammer-like blow caused the body of the mutant shark to shudder. Because of that blow, the mutant shark writhed in pain, trying to shake Yu Zhong off its back. His fingers dug into the head of the mutant shark like claws, while he wrapped his legs around the body. He then proceeded to pummel the mutant shark's head viciously. Although it was difficult to unleash one's strength due to the resistance in water, Yu Zhong's constitution already exceeded a normal person by 10 times. His strength had already exceeded even some mutant beasts, and his blows were a considerable threat. After close to 100 blows, the mutant shark was punched silly and the spider silk was constantly wearing down the stamina of the beast. After struggling for a while, its body went limp helplessly, and it spat out some blood. Yu Zhong quickly made use of the opportunity to add a point to his tamer technique before casting it on the mutant shark. Under the forceful suppression from the level 4 tamer technique, the mutant shark, which was not even at its Type 2 stage, was brought under Yu Zhong's control smoothly. He heaved a sigh of relief and patted its body. With a thought, it directly shot through the water towards the surface like a jet. When they broke through the surface, Yu Zhong exhaled deeply. The fight with the mutant shark had taken 15 minutes. If it wasn't for his high vitality, he would definitely not have been able to hang on. Yu Zhong rode on the mutant shark before handing a Type 2 nuclei to the shark and said, "From today, you're called Little Sharky then." The mutant shark gobbled up the nuclei and expressed its joy through their telepathic connection. To Little Sharky, a Type 2 nuclei was the best form of nutrition. It was already a high-level mutant beast within the waters. Once it digested the nuclei, it could possibly evolve to a Type 2 mutant beast at any time. Yu Zhong gave an order to Little Sharky, "Take me to the nearest land." Receiving his orders, Little Sharky shot towards the northeast direction with its maximum speed. Although it had suffered when it was pummeled by Yu Zhong earlier, the Type 2 nuclei was a sort of nourishment and it was already recovering. Normal sharks could only swim at a speed of about 40 kilometers per hour, and it was only for a short time. Little Sharky was a mutant beast, and it was able to hit 60 kilometers per hour or maintain a speed of 40 kilometers per hour for at least 12 hours. Little Sharky swam for 12 hours straight before it finally brought Yu Zhong to land. It then leaped out of the water onto land, curling its body as if it was dead. Only Yu Zhong knew that Little Sharky was currently evolving towards its Type 2 stage. Yu Zhong glanced at Little Sharky, ordering White Bones to stand guard over it. While he carried Ji Qing Wu and the biological armor she was in towards the inner parts of the land. Chapter 535, Japan. Chapter 535, Japan. Yu Zhong came to a small town, only to discover that it was overrun with tall, wild grass. There were all sorts of abandoned vehicles, and not a single soul was in sight. There were only zombies in groups shambling about. On both sides of the streets, there were various stores with hiragana and katakana characters. Yu Zhong realized where he was. This is Japan. Did we actually come this far? He looked around and strode towards the town. With his enhancement level and combat strength, killing 1,000 zombies wasn't a problem anymore. It would just expend a huge amount of stamina. When Yu Zhong stepped into town, the huge group of zombies were attracted by his sounds and scent and began to shamble over. He waved his huge black tooth blade, slicing the zombies in front of him into two. As they come forward, they would be casually dealt with. Just as he was about to reach the center, there was the sound of glass breaking. Two speedy shadows leaped out suddenly and rushed towards him. The huge black tooth blade slashed out twice in quick succession, as two cold blade beams caused the two S2S to be sliced apart, blood splattering everywhere. A level 3 skill book, Agility Solidification, appeared in Yu Zhong's hands. Strength Solidification, Agility Solidification, such strengthening skill books appeared more commonly. In comparison, Devil Flame, Plant Manipulation, Ice Manipulation, etc., such skills that were powerful offensively were only dropped from hunting high-level mutant beasts or zombies. Even then, the chances were slim. Tasakite, help! As Yu Zhong was waving his black tooth blade about to slice the zombies, an anxious cry or help sounded from a supermarket. Human? Japanese? Yu Zhong frowned and looked towards the direction. He saw a huge supermarket, and up on the second level, there was a young high school female student. Her hair was long and black, tied in a ponytail. Her eyes were bright and large, her bountiful chest threatening to burst out from her sailor-like uniform. She was currently screaming to get Yu Zhong's attention. Should I save her? What the heck? Having a local is better. Yu Zhong hesitated before walking over. There were 5 S2S and 2 L2S, as well as over a dozen other ordinary zombies gathered in front of the gate. They immediately pounced towards Yu Zhong when they saw him. He waved his weapon about, easily taking care of them in a matter of seconds. Within the supermarket, there were a dozen ordinary zombies that were once the employees roaming about. He took care of them and directly headed to the second level, kicking the door wide open. When the Japanese student saw him, her face revealed a pleasant look of surprise as she bowed 90 degrees and greeted him with respect. Arigato, thank you. Yu Zhong eyed the student and asked directly, Do you speak Chinese? Hearing his words, the female student immediately became flustered. It was obvious that she couldn't. He sighed lightly in his heart. Chinese was after all not English, which was the world's most common language. If he hadn't learned the language proficiency skill, it would have been a nightmare to communicate with the student. Yu Zhong continued, I'm Yu Zhong. I'm from China. What's your name? The Japanese student replied, I'm called Fujisaki Kaori, second-year student at Sakura High. I'm 16 this year. Thank you very much for saving me, Uekuin. Why are you here? He assessed her carefully, noting the Japanese katana beside her, and felt that it must be a system equipment. Fujisaki Kaori looked at Yu Zhong with her huge eyes filled with reverence and idolization. I was here to source for food. However, I wasn't careful and allowed those S-types and L-types to surround me. Thankfully, Uekuin appeared to save me. Otherwise, I would have starved to death here. Uekuin, you're really strong. You can kill so many zombies so easily. It's too amazing. The Japanese were respectful people, and their humble attitude and reverence for the strong were deep set in their bones. As long as there was strength, it didn't matter what the other party was. Only the strong would earn the respect and veneration from the Japanese. Fujisaki Kaori watched how fearlessly Yu Zhong had strolled into the crowd of zombies. He had crushed them like ants, and her heart had fluttered. She felt slightly attracted to him. After all, he had just saved her. Heroes rescuing damsels in distress was a tradition that was almost a surefire way to win the heart of the fairer sex. It was so popular because it was extremely effective. Fujisaki Kaori was silent for a while before she extended an invitation to Yuzhong. Yuekuen, will you please come with me to our establishment? Yuzhong looked at her expectant expression and guessed that she might be from a small establishment. Those small-time factions had no way of containing someone like him. If he were to rage, he could easily decimate one or two of such bases. Sure, he agreed, even though he was not of a favorable impression of the Japanese. However, he had no choice because of the foreign land, and he needed someone to guide. Come with me. I'll gift you something from the supermarket. Yuzhong turned and headed down. Fujisaki Kaori followed him down. He pointed to the entire supermarket and said, "Help yourself. Thanks." After expressing her thanks, Fujisaki Kaori ran and grabbed a huge haversack, before stuffing it with all sorts of things. After filling it up, she then found a trolley, filling it up before pushing it out. This Fujisaki Kaori is pretty intelligent. Yuzhong eyed her actions and praised her silently. Most people would not think of using the trolleys to collect and transport items. After all, one's mobility would be affected when using it. However, Fujisaki Kaori had done precisely so because she knew she had Yuzhong around. Soon, she carried her haversack and pushed the trolley in front of him. "Let's go." Yuzhong eyed Fujisaki Kaori and turned around, not minding the trolley at all. She was slightly disappointed and proceeded to push it herself, following behind Yuzhong. Along the way, many zombies tried to attack Yuzhong. All he had to do was to slash out casually. The zombies didn't stand a chance, each and every one of them being sliced in two. None could get close enough. Strong. He's even stronger than demons. Fujisaki Kaori watched on as Yuzhong continued to slaughter the zombies, and her heart trembled. With her leading, Yuzhong soon came to a small village in between two mountains. Kaori Wani-chan. Kaori Wani-chan, you're back. When Fujisaki Kaori returned to the village, a number of small kids from the ages of 9 to 13 came running out. Other than them, there were 2 other women that seemed above 30, as well as 3 other younger women of about 16 to 18. There was a total of 15 kids that came running out. Every one of them was scrawny and had visible signs of the conditions of the apocalypse. However, they had no signs of being mistreated and were still as innocent and boisterous as kids should be. At this time, one 17 or 18-year-old young woman with freckles and an obese figure shot Fujisaki Kaori a look and barked, "Kaori, who is this person? How can you bring a man back? Have you forgotten that all men are animals?" Another one, who was shorter and had an ordinary face, looked at the black tooth blade on Yuzhong's back with apprehension in her eyes and asked, "Kaori, who is this?" There was also a bespectacled and pretty but strict-looking Japanese lady who was assessing Yuzhong through narrowed eyes. She kept silent. The kids in the village were also curiously looking at Yuzhong. Fujisaki Kaori started to explain to the rest. "He is Yuzhong from China. He saved me from being trapped at the supermarket. Because of him, I was able to get all these." The freckled fatty immediately shouted out in agitation when she heard Yuzhong was from China. "What? He's Chinese. Shit. Fujisaki Kaori. How can you bring a Chinese here? This is Japan. We're Japanese. This is not a place you can come to. Get the hell out. Get out. We don't welcome you here. This is Japan. We don't welcome the Chinese here. Get out. Yutsuri Jima is ours." When they heard the shouts of the freckled fatty, the rest of the Japanese kids also began to jump up and down as they hollered at Yuzhong. Various Japanese right-wing forces have been rearing their heads in recent years and influenced much of the public opinion on a general hatred towards the Chinese. As the kids began to shout, some even bent down to pick up stones and pebbles to pelt Yuzhong. Bunch of unconscientious people. Yuzhong's eyes flashed coldly and shot forwards. He lashed out with his leg, kicking 5 of the kids, sending them flying about 7 to 8 meters backward. They all spat blood. He then lunged towards the freckled fatty and slapped her harshly across the face, causing her to tumble and a few of her teeth to be knocked out. She also coughed up blood as a result. Chapter 536, Xenophobia. Chapter 536, Xenophobia. Yuzhong pulled out his huge black tooth blade and pointed it at those Japanese survivors. He barked out coldly, "All of you shall kneel. Those who don't, I'll slice your head off. You dare hit me, I'll kill you." The freckled fatty instantly charged over with a face contorted by fury. "No!" Fujisaki Kaori immediately screamed out. Yu Zhong's eyes flashed coldly, and the black tooth blade sliced through the air like a beam of light. The head of the freckled fatty soared through the air as fresh blood splattered. Her headless corpse struggled a little before slumping to the ground. After killing the freckled fatty, Yu Zhong's eyes turned even colder as he pointed at all the Japanese survivors and shouted out with a menacing and oppressive tone, "Get the fuck on the ground. Otherwise, you'll die." When they saw Yu Zhong killing the girl without hesitating, everyone stared in shock and fear, as though they had just seen a demon. Sorry. Forgive our offense. Sorry. Please forgive us." The pretty bespectacled girl was the first to get on the ground. The rest also hurriedly got on their knees in terror, as they begun to plead for mercy. "Please, Uekuin, please have mercy on us. Don't kill anyone else." They didn't mean it. Fujisaki Kaori also knelt and begged Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong had kicked the Japanese kids and took the life of the freckled fatty without batting an eyelid. This was proof of his cold nature and not someone to be pushed around. They had been totally suppressed by his terrifying aura. "Please use as you wish, but spare the kids. They're innocent." The 2 middle-aged women crawled over and pulled their clothes off, revealing their fair breasts. They hoped to use their bodies to appease Yu Zhong. "I'm not interested in you. Since you guys don't welcome, then you won't like the food that I had kindly provided. Let me burn them all." He eyed the Japanese survivors coolly and pointed to the trolley. His devil flame immediately ignited the trolley, turning the trolley and its contents into cinders. All the survivors looked at the burning items, and their eyes flashed with an intense regret. A few of them began to wail. They were running out of supplies. Otherwise, the weak Fujisaki Kaori would not have risked her life to search for food. The small town might not pose a problem to Yu Zhong, but to those ordinary survivors, it was as terrifying as hell. A single S2 was enough to kill the entire village of survivors. After turning the trolley into ash, his gaze landed on the haversack on Fujisaki Kaori's back. She felt a chill down her spine and grabbed the bag tightly. She kneeled on the ground and began begging, "Uekuin, please, let's have at least this bag. It's our only hope. As long as you leave this for us, I'm willing to spend the night with you. I'm a virgin, and I should be able to satisfy you." The pretty, bespectacled girl who had been kneeling rigidly also spoke up. "Uekuin, I'm Ida Kyoko, 17 this year. I'm also a virgin. This time it was our fault. Please be magnanimous and let us have this bag. I'm willing to join Kaori and let you have your way with us for a night." Without food, the entire town could not survive beyond a few more days. Ida Kyoko was also extremely clear and decided to use her body to exchange for the food. Yu Zhong spoke coldly. "I need a map of this area. I also need someone to lead the way to the nearest establishment. As long as you can provide this, I'll leave tomorrow, and the bag is yours." He had no goodwill towards the Japanese, but he would not go on a massacre for no reason. Unless both sides were enemies, where he would not hesitate to rain hell and carnage upon his foes. Ida Kyoko kneeled in front of Yu Zhong and spoke respectfully. "Yes, I have a map here. I also know where the location of the nearest survivor base is. Let me be your guide tomorrow, Uekuin. Please rest for the night here." If he had not displayed his strength, they would have already chased him out. However, since he showed that he was willing to punish children and killed the freckled fatty who had dared to assault him, they were filled with fear towards him. Naturally, they would not chase him out, for fear of him going crazy and killing them all. And he replied indifferently and began to walk into town. After he left, the survivors stood up. "Damn Chinese dog. Low-life Chinese scum. You dare kick the future elites of my great Japan. I'll not let you off. I'll make life a living hell for you." A 13-year-old Japanese boy by the name of Ueda Koji with dyed blonde hair stared hatefully at Yu Zhong's back, his eyes flashing viciously. Ueda Koji looked at Ida Kyoko and Fujisaki Kaori, and his face contorted in rage. "Kaori Wani-chan is mine. Kyoko Wani-chan is also mine. I'll not let you take them away. Chinese dog." With these vile thoughts, Ueda Koji thought to find a chance to slip out of town. Soon, it came to dinner time. The two Japanese housewives prepared a large wok of porridge before separating in many bowls. The Japanese children lined up to get their bowls before slurping the porridge, wiping the bowls clean. Yu Zhong watched this sullenly. In his country, his fellow countrymen had a lack of manners and the habit of queuing. Even the little rascals would frequently jump the line and made use of their bodies to squeeze through or bully the weaker kids for food. These were all bad habits instilled in them by their parents. Only after Yu Zhong punished this behavior did it start to disappear. Seeing the orderly manner of the Japanese kids, he was slightly unhappy. After all, he was slightly nationalistic, and seeing the Japanese being better than the Chinese in any aspect caused him to feel sour. "Yuekuen, this is yours." Ida Kyoko served a plate to Yu Zhong. It was a simple meal. There was soup, rice, as well as canned fish and vegetables. In this apocalypse, it was considered a sumptuous meal. Many of the Japanese looked over, their mouths salivating. However, they sat still, not daring to move about. The Chinese in front of them had shown them how ruthless he could be, and they dared not provoke this man who killed without blinking. "No need. You guys have it." Yu Zhong declined their goodwill and pulled out his own canned Type 2 beast meat and began to devour it down. The Type 3 mutant beast meat would boost his energy and replenish what he expended, so he would only save it for situations where he might need to recover or save weaker survivors. Ida Kyoko had also done so as a perfunctory gesture. She wasn't really willing to let Yu Zhong have such precious food. When he declined, she brought the food back and separated into 14 equal portions, giving the little kids to eat. Although it was just a little bit, the kids all had expressions of bliss on their faces. Yu Zhong watched the actions of Ida Kyoko as well as the kids, and he thought silently, what a scary race of people. Japan had been able to pick itself up and soar to economic greatness after World War II. On one hand, it was because there was the assistance from America. On the other hand, which was more important, was that the Japanese were very united and had an undying resolve no matter the obstacle. The more he watched, the more depressed he got, and he decided to hoist the biological armor and walked into another room to rest. When he left, all the Japanese survivors heaved a sigh of relief. His very presence exuded an overpowering pressure on them, making it hard for them to breathe. When he left, they could finally relax. One of the housewives asked, "Kyoko, are you really going to lead him tomorrow?" Ida Kyoko nodded, and this Yu Zhong seems to be a man of his word. If I help him, he will keep his promise. The other housewife spoke. I wonder what he wants with a larger survivor base. Why don't we all follow him? Maybe joining a larger survivor base would be easier for us all. Right at this time, the sounds of motorbikes and cars came roaring from outside the village. Hearing the commotion, the survivors all stepped out to take a look out of curiosity, only to see a whole bunch of men in tattered and mismatched clothes, each of them wielding weapons like baseball bats, knives, and blades. Ueda Koji was behind the leader, a burly man with a shaven head. He had a huge scar running down his face, and he had plenty of tattoos on his body. Ueda Koji spoke respectfully to the scarred man. "Kawada Oyabun, it's here." The bald scarred man was called Kawada Taro. He was the boss of this area and had 60 soldiers under him, and was the king of about 300 survivors. Chapter 537, Blade Beam. Chapter 537. 37, Blade Beam. Kill. Kawada Yutaro revealed a savage smile and waved his hands, leading his subordinates into the village. The dozens of armed men charged into the village in a frenzy. Quick! Escape! Fujisaki Kaori immediately screamed when she saw those men, after which she led the kids towards the village. The two housewives ran over towards the men, hoping to use their bodies to buy some time for the kids. The subordinates of Kawada Yutaro began to surround the two housewives as they took off their pants and began to rape the two women while laughing in glee. While the two women were surrounded by 10 men, the rest of the armed men charged towards the village while roaring with laughter. Kaori Wani-chan, save me. All of a sudden, a 12-year-old boy tripped and fell, his face wearing a frightened expression as he shouted for Kaori. Ha ha ha, die. One of the thugs swung his blade down with a perverse look of madness, separating the kid's head in a shower of blood. While it was true that the Japanese had a powerful will and fighting spirit, likewise, some had an intense side to them. Many had their own mental demons, which when unleashed, would cause them to be worse than beasts. Those subordinates of Kawada Yutaro were capable of all evils, and every one of them had no qualms committing acts of evil. Kenta! Fujisaki Kaori screamed out in misery when she witnessed the cruel and inhumane scene. A 10-year-old girl fell as well, and she sobbed uncontrollably with snot and tears flowing out her eyes and nose. She pleaded as she looked towards Ida Kyoko. Wani-chan. Save me. Kyoko Wani-chan. Save me, please. 3 of the burly thugs instantly surrounded that little girl and took off their pants before proceeding to press the girl underneath them. They basically allowed their primal but perverse nature to go wild. Soon, the screams of pain mixed with the pants of excitement from the thugs filled the air. There was a disgusting tension in the air. Masako! Masako-chan! Animals! Ida Kyoko screamed out as she watched on helplessly. Her beautiful face was an expression of fury, her eyes bloodshot, and her hands were pale white from clenching too tight. However, she was extremely clear that even if she went back, she would just become a sacrifice, not doing any good. Yuzhong, there's only him left. Only he can save us. Ida Kyoko came to a swift decision and thought of the only person in the village that could save them. On the other side, Fujisaki Kaori was not stupid as well and brought the kids towards Yuzhong's location. Ida Kyoko came to where Yuzhong was staying and saw that he was leaning against the window, watching the events unfold quietly. He showed no intentions of lending a helping hand at all. Yuzhong watched the Japanese thugs killing and raping their own countrymen, and there was a mix of emotions in him. There was fury, numbness, and a slight sense of gratification. He was furious because these brutes actually had no qualms killing their own people. Numb because he had seen so much of these types of scenarios since the apocalypse began. Each time a faction took over another, there would be such unrest and chaos. He had truly seen too much, and the slight gratification was because he silently thought that even the Japanese were not saints. Seems like there were enough perverts among them as well. Ida Kyoko immediately knelt down in front of Yuzhong and pleaded, "Uekuin, please lend a hand and save us." If Yuzhong did not do anything, the survivors would likely be wiped out, leaving at most the women to serve as sex slaves. Yuzhong's eyes flashed with a look of ridicule. "I'm a hated Chinese of your Japanese people. Why should I save you guys? You should look for your own people to help." When the Japanese survivors had first seen Yuzhong, they were immediately xenophobic. Yuzhong was still fuming over their ungrateful attitude towards his goodwill. He was the sort that was clear about his feelings. He would be nice to those who treat him well, and he would be ruthless to those who were his enemies. Ida Kyoko raised her head to implore Yuzhong with those mesmerizing eyes of hers. There was a resolute look in them. "Ueken, I would like to propose a deal. Please save these kids. After all, they're innocent. In exchange, I'll be willing to serve you as a maid from now on. From today onwards, whatever you ask of Kyoko, I'll do it." Ida Kyoko wasn't an idiot. She knew those thugs outside were beyond control. They had no way of talking sense or logic with them. In comparison, although Yu Zhong was a foreigner, he was at least reasonable. In her eyes, there was a chance to negotiate with him. Kyoko. Fujisaki Kori heard those words and turned to look at her, her face pale and her mind blank. Although her abilities were the strongest among the villagers, her adaptability and reaction to situations were not Ida Kyoko's equal. Yu Zhong stared at Ida Kyoko, who was looking straight at him with a resolute gaze, and replied coolly, "Remember all that you said today. If you dare go back on your word, I have my means to make you regret it for life." Ida Kyoko kneeled in front of Yu Zhong and bowed deeply. Yes. She had received an upbringing from the higher rungs of society and wore those thick old-fashioned glasses to hide her beauty. So many women. At this time, 13 men barged in. When they saw the 2 women in the room and those kids, the eyes of the men all lit up in excitement. Fujisaki Kaori looked at one member of the group that had barged in, a look of disbelief flashing in her eyes, and she exclaimed shrilly, "Koji, it was you. You betrayed us. Why? Why did you betray us?" Of the 13 men, one was precisely Ueda Koji. Ueda Koji looked at Fujisaki Kori and Ida Kyoko, his face contorted in madness. "Kaori Wani-chan. Kyoko Wani-chan. I like you guys. I want you to be my women. What is that Chinese dog worth? Why is it that you two were smitten by him the moment he came? This Chinese dog are our Japan's enemies. Why? Why must you treat him so well to the point of offering your bodies to him? Since it's like this, why can't I be your man? Yutaro Oyabun has already promised me. As long as I lead them here, the 2 of you will be women from now on." Ida Kyoko looked at Ueda Koji, her eyes flashing with pity. "Koji, you have been deceived. They will not give us to you." The few subordinates of Kawada, Yutaro laughed at Ueda Koji with scorn and ridicule in their eyes. With these 2 beauties, Kawada Yutaro would definitely not leave them, just for Ueda Koji to enjoy alone. However, Ueda Koji didn't seem to discover anything amiss. Looking at Kawada Yutaro with an expectant look, "Kawada Oyabun will not lie to me. Kawada Oyabun, you can deal with the rest how you like. Kaori Wani-chan and Kyoko Wani-chan are mine. Please capture them for me." Kawada Yutaro's eyes flashed coldly, and he suddenly pulled out a sharp katana and sliced towards Ueda Koji, causing his body to be separated. With blood splattering everywhere, and his legs separated from his body, Ueda Koji didn't die instantly. Instead, he fell to the ground, screaming out. His face was hideous, his eyes filled with fear and disbelief. Kawada Yutaro looked at Ueda Koji, and there were contempt and ridicule in his eyes. "I'm not lying to you. I will hand them to you. But since you're dead, then your women will be shared by the rest of us." He then turned to Yu Zhong and waved his hands, ordering out coldly, "Chop up that Chinese. I want him alive, and I will cook him in torture. Whoever can remove his limbs after I'm done with these 2 women, that person will get to be second. Kill." The other 11 men that were surrounding the room instantly charged towards Yu Zhong with savage looks. 2 of them were agility enhancers of level 7, their abilities stronger than the rest of the thugs. Seeing the assault of the 11 thugs, the remaining kids immediately darted behind Yu Zhong, their faces filled with fright. Each of the thugs wielded sharp katanas, and they looked positively terrifying. Ida Kyoko couldn't help but scream out in warning, "Watch out!" These were 11 thugs encircling one man. She was afraid that once Yu Zhong was killed, they would all be at the mercy of Kawada Yutaro, and their fates would be worse than death. Thrash! With that mild snort, a blade beam slashed out across the room. The 11 thugs were instantly sliced into pieces, blood splattering everywhere. Witnessing such a horrifying scene, Kawada Yutaro was shocked, his heart instantly plummeting. Chapter 538, Dispute. Chapter 538, Dispute. Kyoko, Kaori, and the remaining kids were all shocked when they witnessed this. This sort of technique exceeded what was possible, and they were truly shaken. Kyoko's eyes were filled with veneration. Too terrifying. His technique had exceeded human limitations. Even a sword saint would not be able to block that blow. He's as terrifying as a demon. Kawada Yutaro was afraid, but he was known around these parts as a fierce thug after all. He forcefully suppressed his fear by shouting out loudly, charging at Yuzhong with a fearsome killing intent. What a fast blade! Kyoko was the chairman of the Kendo club back in school and knew about Kendo. She could see that the move of Kawada Yutaro was not simple, and if it was her facing him, she would definitely not be able to defend against the strike. Furthermore, it was backed by his strength of a level 23 enhancer. Kawada Yutaro had just run forwards a few steps and reached Yuzhong when suddenly a blade flashed. Kawada Yutaro's head was sent flying into the sky with a shower of warm blood. His headless corpse continued to stumble a few steps forwards before crashing to the ground. Yuzhong stepped forward and picked up the katana from the corpse of Kawada Yutaro, and a flurry of information appeared in his mind. Level 2 treasure, Odachi. An incredibly sharp blade. Yuzhong threw the Odachi over to Kyoko. Take it. I can't be protecting you all the time. Only you can protect yourself. Yes, I understand. Kyoko picked up the Odachi and bowed to Yuzhong before taking a few swings. Each and every move of hers was precise and purposeful. This girl definitely has some background. Yuzhong eyed Kyoko before turning around and walked out. Come with me. Kaori and Kyoko followed behind Yuzhong. They were joined by the remaining Japanese kids. Outside, the remaining subordinates of Kawada Yutaro were currently raping their captives indiscriminately. When they saw Yuzhong and his group step out, they rushed over with looks of savagery. Yuzhong watched the incoming bandits indifferently and slashed out, slicing them all in two. As the scene of carnage unfolded, Yuzhong strolled through like a bloodthirsty devil. Any bandit that got too close would be immediately sliced. Terrifying. He's like a demon. He's too strong. Kaori stood behind Yuzhong and watched as he dealt with the bandits, her heart filled with shock and reverence. When the bandits had almost been wiped out, leaving a dozen behind, those remaining ones tried to make a break for it. Get the hell on the floor. Otherwise you'll die. Yuzhong barked out coldly when he saw them running. He then shot forwards with a speed that exceeded a Type 2 lightning, rushing towards the bandits. In the dark of the night, a few of the escaping bandits were separated in two as blood splattered everywhere, their innards spilling out of their corpses. It was a horrifying scene, and the screams rang out through the night. Don't kill me. I surrender. Don't kill me. There are many cowards who fear death among the bandits as well. When they saw their comrades being slaughtered like pigs, they immediately got on the floor and begged Yuzhong tearfully. In that short carnage, all that was left of the bandit group was 9 people. The rest had become corpses. The 9 of them kneeled on the floor, their bodies trembling uncontrollably as they awaited Yuzhong's judgment. Along Kaori's path, she had seen the dead bodies of her fellow survivors. With every passing body, the fury in her heart intensified. The housewives were naked, their bodies covered with spots of semen everywhere. Their eyes were opened wide, and their bodies were covered in bruises. They had no life left in them. There were also 4 other Lolas of about 10 to 11. While they were not dead yet, they had been tortured till the point where they're on the brink of death. Their bodies were bruised, and there was blood everywhere. 6 of the boys were also covered in semen, their necks already snapped, and their faces full of fear even in death. In the apocalypse, ration was precious. Girls and women would be used to satisfy desires. That was why they were likelier to survive. To the rotten bandits under Kawada Yutaro, anyone else were just dispensable. They were cruel and vicious, and naturally would not allow the other boys to survive. When Kaori saw the bandits lined up in front of Yuzhong, she lost her cool and screamed, "Bastards! Yuekuin! Kill them! Kill these fucking beasts!" Hearing her shrill screams, those men began to tremble even more. They looked fearfully at Yuzhong and his long black tooth blade. "Shut up!" Yuzhong shot Kaori a cold look. She felt like a bucket of cold water had been poured over her, and she immediately clammed up. Yu Zhong ordered, "Kyoko, go tie them up." "Yes, master," she replied, and found a few ropes before tying the captives seriously. She then escorted them to a small storehouse and locked them in. Yu Zhong gazed at the remaining survivors, as he spoke indifferently. "My deal with Kyoko is completed. The rest is up to you." After that, he went back to his room and rested. If it were in China, Yu Zhong would definitely have slaughtered these thugs and used his resources to save the children. He would then train them and teach them how to survive in this cruel world. However, this was Japan. To a deeply nationalistic person like Yu Zhong, it was a mercy that he didn't slaughter them all. He would naturally not lend a hand to the xenophobic Japanese survivors. "Keiko-chan, hang in there. Hang in there. Nishi-chan, hang in there." Inside a room, Kaori was currently applying all the precious medicine that they had on the 4 pitiful girls. The girls laid there, their bodies still defiled and covered with bruises and blood, and Kaori's tears would not stop flowing. Those thugs who had followed Kawada Yutaro were inhumane beasts and scum among scum. They had lost all sense of rationality and had vented their desires without care for the frail bodies of the girls, causing them to be broken. Kaori looked at those pale and shivering children who were teetering between life and death and asked Kyoko frantically, "What do we do, Kyoko? What should we do?" In this small village, the housewives had been the ones to call the shots. Kaori was just a pretty high school student. She was part of the gymnastics club in school and had also learned some karate. After the apocalypse happened, she had become an enhancer by chance. However, her circumstances were vastly different from Yu Zhong, and she wasn't as strong. She did not dare take risks as well, hence her low level. Other than her status as an enhancer and a beauty, she could not compare to Kyoko in terms of her intelligence and adaptability. Kyoko looked at Kaori and the remaining children and frowned. She was extremely clear that once she was brought along with Yu Zhong tomorrow, the rest would not stand a chance out here. In fact, one of the reasons she decided to follow Yu Zhong was to rely on this expert in the future. Kyoko pondered for a long while before speaking softly. "Kaori, go plead with Master. Only he has the means to save Keiko-chan and the rest." When Kaori heard that, her eyes lit up before turning crestfallen again. "Kyoko, he would not help us easily." After this matter, Kaori had a good feel of Yu Zhong's character. The first meeting the villagers had with him turned antagonistic. Expecting him to help out without asking for anything was basically impossible. Kyoko suggested, "Simple. Submit to him. Accept him as your master. Then he would not abandon us without a care." One of the boys of about 12 or 13, Kuromoto Kira, immediately opposed vehemently. "No way. I oppose. He's cruel, and he's a Chinese, our hated enemy. I will definitely not accept him as our master. This is Japan, not China. We are the pride and glorious people of Japan. How can we submit to him? No, no way. He didn't even say he wanted us. We could handle our own problems in the past. We should continue doing so in the future." The village had been fortunate, having found a huge source of rations right at the start of the apocalypse. Also, there had been a moral enhancer who helped to clear the town, allowing them to stay here hidden. They had gone through much lesser hardships compared to survivors outside, and due to that, they had been blinded by the cruelty of the world. "Kira-kun," Kaori heard his words and faltered. This wasn't like ancient times. She too wasn't willing to become a maid. As long as a modern person did not go through any sort of hardships, no one would be willing to recognize someone else as master, especially with a Chinese man like Yu Zhong. Kira held up a small kodachi and declared with confidence, "Kaori One-chan. I, Kuromoto Kira, swear to work hard to become a hero to protect you guys, with this kodachi in my hands." The kodachi was a first-class weapon. It had been picked up by Kira from one of the dead thugs. With it, he was suddenly filled with confidence. Although he acknowledged that he was not a match for Yu Zhong, he had the confidence to protect Kaori. Chapter 539. Type 3 Liger Beast. Chapter 539. Type 3 Liger Beast. Kaori hesitated before she looked towards Kyoko, imploring her to help with her intelligence and perspective. Kyoko looked back and sighed. Kaori, I'm not part of you guys already. You'll have to make the decision yourselves. By now, the three Japanese boys had stood up and were wielding their kodachis. Their eyes flickered with an unwavering resolve, obviously not intending to pledge allegiance to Yuzhong. The three of them were only about 12 or 13, and under the education system, they were brought up to hate the Chinese. If it wasn't for the strength of Yuzhong that was so frightening, they would try to assassinate him in the night. Kira looked at Kaori and spoke loudly. Kaori, Wani-chan. The Chinese have a good saying, one must be guarded towards those not of one's race. He would definitely not view us as equals, and he might even use us as slaves or cannon fodder. Hearing Kira's words, Kaori sunk into contemplation again. I'll be going. Kyoko saw the three boys filled with hostility towards her and left the room. She could tell that she was no longer welcomed. Early the next morning, Yuzhong brought out the remaining 9 thugs from the locked storehouse. Yuzhong approached one of the shorter men who looked about 26 or 27, with ordinary features, and asked, "What's your name?" The young man replied somewhat hesitatingly, "My name is Takashi Honda. I'm 28 this year." These thugs did not refrain from committing evil acts in the apocalyptic world. They had seen their fair share of things, and knew that this man in front of them was a truly strong expert. The Japanese revered the strong, and having witnessed Yuzhong's might, they were both in fright and in awe. Yuzhong stared at Honda and questioned, "Where's the nearest radio broadcast station?" "Radio station? Please let me think for a while." His brain began to work before his eye lit up, and he responded, "Yama County, Hinoki Station. There's a large survivor base in that vicinity. There should be a radio station there." Yuzhong then shot out a flurry of questions. What is the faction ruling over there now? Who's the leader? How many survivors are there? Honda thought hard before replying. The ones governing Yama County should be the Shimizu clan. The current leader is Shimizu Yuji. There are over 10,000 survivors there. They're considered the strongest faction, and no one dares provoke them. When Yuzhong heard that, his brows furrowed. If it were just 1,000-strong establishment, he could definitely charge by himself to suppress the faction and forcefully obtain the station. However, a base of more than 10,000 survivors was bound to have a number of strong experts. Furthermore, Japan had plenty of thick forests, which would mean more diverse mutant beasts and mutant plants. There would definitely be plenty of experts. Yuzhong pondered before making a decision. I just need the radio station anyway. Let's just see how it goes. Yuzhong gave Honda an order. From now on, you're the captain of this small team. This is my maid Ida Kyoko. Her position is higher than yours. Now move out. Yes, I got it. When Honda heard those words, he was overjoyed. He was originally just a small-time thug among the group of bandits. Now he had become a captain. Furthermore, following someone as strong as Yuzhong wasn't too bad. With his strength, it was possible to trample over many obstacles. In fact, any enhancer above level 30 could go around sourcing for survivors to form a small faction. Of course, expanding from there wasn't as easy. Yuzhong had always been a man of action, coming and going like the wind. He brought Honda and Kyoko, leaving Kaori and the rest of the children as he walked towards the direction of Yama County. He was not a nanny and had no obligation to look after those that had nothing to do with him. Seeing Yuzhong turn around without so much of a care, Kaori's gaze was complicated. She felt uncertain about the future of the village and was slightly at a loss. About 67% of Japan were forest areas. Other than the major cities, the rest were forests. Yuzhong escorted the captives while being led by Honda through one particular forest. All of a sudden, there was a mighty roar that resounded throughout the forest. Countless birds were alarmed and scattered to the skies. The moment Honda and the rest heard the roar, their bodies shuddered, their faces full of shock. Honda immediately exclaimed with fear, "Not good! It's a Liger beast, a Type 3 Liger beast. We should escape now. Otherwise we'll die. Type 3 mutant beasts. When Yu Zhong heard it, his eyes lit up in excitement. He was now at a high level, and he had already promoted his devil flame into its second-order stage. Against a Type 3 mutant beast, he possessed some means to go against one. It was unlikely that he would be killed quickly. Hence, he had the intention to hunt it. Yu Zhong immediately gave a gun to Kyoko and ordered, "You guys stay here. Kyoko, this is for you. If anyone dares make a move on you, execute him immediately." Seeing the gun in Kyoko's hands, Honda and the rest of his team all showed signs of greed and envy. The might of a gun was powerful, and some evolvers could not withstand them still. The bunch of thugs were ordinary, with only 2 low-level enhancers among them. They were definitely incapable of handling Kyoko. After passing his instructions, Yu Zhong shot towards the direction of the roar, disappearing in a flash. In his heart, only Kyoko had some value. The rest could die for all he cared. If the thugs were to run, it would at most be a bit of trouble. Yu Zhong ran with his maximum speed, arriving near the source of the noise. Honk! Honk! When Yu Zhong was approaching the area, sounds of huge explosions rang out. There are people! Yu Zhong's heart turned cold, and he immediately became cautious. He hesitated before retrieving the stealth skill book and immediately learned it. He was in a foreign land. Japan's advanced technology, coupled with their xenophobia towards China, meant that he was in a more dangerous situation compared to Vietnam. After all, as long as Yu Zhong had continued to move in the direction of Guangxi, he would be like a fish in waters. However, in Japan, he had no kin, no friends. He didn't even know which direction he could move towards. It was infinitely more prudent to be careful and turned everything at his disposal to something he could utilize. Yu Zhong proceeded towards the sounds of explosions before activating the skill. His entire body blended with the surroundings, without a sign of his aura nor killing intent. The moment he activated stealth, even if he were to meet an existence stronger than him by a few times, it would be hard for him to be discovered. About a few hundred meters in front of him, there was a forest, and he could see a 3M tall beast of over 15M in length. It had the head of a tiger and body of a lion. A layer of scales covered its body. Its tail was lengthy at 3M, and its eyes were as large as plates. The fearsome beast was currently engaged in a fierce battle with a bunch of people. Level 88 Mutant Beast, Type 3 Liger Beast. It has a terrifying body and is an overlord within the jungles. There were over 300 people, each of them wielding different firearms and weapons. The group of people were all high-level enhancers, each of them possessing powerful offensive abilities like the Ice Pick, Flame Arrows, Earth Spikes, Air Cannons, Gravity Lock, Plant Manipulation, Summon Beast, etc. All sorts of abilities were casted towards the Type 3 Liger Beast. The 300 enhancers were all working in tandem without any flaw in their teamwork. With their smooth cooperation, even Yu Zhong would be dead if he engaged them. The Type 3 Liger Beast leaped with all its might, using its pure strength and power to break away from all the shackles. Even with the power of the various gravity and vacuum users, it still possessed a speed that exceeded a Type 2 Lightning. However, because it was still slowed down considerably with the numerous abilities being casted on it, parts of its scales were chipped away. There was no considerable damage dealt to it, however, but the attacks served to enrage it further. The Type 3 Liger Beast pounced into the midst of some of the humans and caused one enhancer to be trapped under its paws. With a bite, the enhancer had his throat ripped out. The Type 3 Liger Beast then swept its powerful tail, smashing into the head of one other enhancer, separating it from his body. The Type 3 Liger Beast was like a tiger among sheep as it smacked a number of enhancers to the ground before biting into their throats, killing them in showers of blood. As the Type 3 Liger Beast was massacring the elite enhancers, Fremen stood a distance away observing the situation. A young man with a 2.5M huge sword on his back looked at the Type 3 Liger Beast with a hint of greed in his eyes. Powerful, It truly is a Type 3 mutant beast. I wonder what will drop out once I kill it? A middle-aged man frowned slightly. Ogawa-kun, that beast is not something you can handle alone. Only by working together, we can take it down. Plus, whatever that drops doesn't belong to you alone. It belongs to Emperor Amaterasu, the whole of Takama-ga-hara. Ogawa stared at the Type 3 Liger beast and licked his lips. Yes. Yes. Go to Senpai. Let us join hands and deal with this beast then. Chapter 540, Killing the Liger Beast. Chapter 540, Killing the Liger Beast. When the Type 3 Liger beast decimated those 20 enhancers, Ogawa's eyes flashed with a chilly light. He waved his hands, and a number of translucent spider silk shot towards the Type 3 Liger beast noiselessly. The Type 3 Liger beast had just slapped a high-level enhancer in two when the spider silk stuck themselves to its body. However, the Type 3 Liger beast didn't seem to notice the spider silk hanging from its body. As the Type 3 Liger beast continued to rampage and tear 6 other enhancers apart, Ogawa shouted, "Kawada-senpai!" A burly man who was about 2 m tall, with rippling muscles shot forwards. His name was Kawada Kotaro. He activated his second-order explosive strength, and his strength index shot to a whopping 28 times. He grabbed onto the spider silk released by Ogawa and bellowed in rage, before activating his level 3 might, causing his strength to further increase to 56 times. He then pulled savagely, and the 3 m tall Type 3 Liger beast with a body length of over 15 m was instantly shackled down. Kawada Kotaro was a strength-based evolver, and the second-order explosive strength could cause him to increase his strength by 10 times that of a person. The level 3 might would also double his strength as long as it go beyond 400 points. This allowed him to drag the body of the Type 3 Liger beast down. When the Type 3 Liger beast was forcefully suppressed onto the ground, the enhancers all around immediately launched all their skills on it, causing the entire body of the Liger beast to be covered in wounds. Divine Spear Break. Kamama Ichiro, an expert wielding a 2 m long black spear, roared out. His spirit was pushed to its maximum, and his entire body seemed to become one with the black spear as they turned into a flash of light that shot towards the Type 3 Liger beast viciously. Divine Spear Break was a powerful second-order skill, and when Kamama Ichiro transformed into a shooting star, he managed to pierce the scales of the Type 3 Liger beast and even tore a huge wound in its body. Seems like Japan has its experts too. Yu Zhong watched as Kamama Ichiro exhibited his powerful spear move, and he thought silently to himself. If it was him who was faced with that strike, even he would be severely injured. The Type 3 Liger beast released an earth-shaking roar as its claws swung down like a clap of thunder. Kamama Ichiro's head was instantly separated from his body, and blood splattered everywhere. This was a level 58 evolver, and he was just killed in an instant by the Type 3 Liger beast. The Type 3 Liger beast then tugged on the spider silk, as a powerful strength traveled along the silk to reach Kawada Kotaro. He was immediately sent flying through the air towards the direction of the Type 3 Liger beast, which seized the chance to lift itself up and bite Kawada Kotaro into two. The scene was gory. Ogawa's reaction was fast. The moment he saw Kamama Ichiro's head being slapped away, he quickly cut off the connection between the silk and himself. That was how he avoided being sent into the mouth of the Type 3 Liger beast as well. The Type 3 Liger beast's muscles became taut as its eyes turned bloodshot. It drew a ragged breath and leaped forwards while still under the effects of the gravity manipulation. In a flash, it appeared in front of a middle-aged man that looked like the leader of the troops, and with a swipe of its paws, that man's head was sent flying. Baka! Ogawa's bodies turned cold, and he immediately activated his level 4 life-saving ability, Flicker, causing his body to disappear from his spot and appearing about 10 m away. His voice then resounded as he ordered the rest of the enhancers. "Kill it! All of you attack!" Ice picks, fireballs, ground spikes, lightning orbs, all sorts of abilities were launched at the Type 3 Liger beast. They served to injure it further, causing new wounds to open on top of the already serious old ones. A battle that uses mass numbers was truly useful, as the Type 3 Liger beast was slowly being whittled down by the constant barrage of attacks from the enhancers. There were multiple fist-sized wounds all over its body, and there was an especially large one at its chest. The precious blood was flowing profusely. The Type 3 Liger beast was nearing the end of its line, yet it was still not dead. It continued to leap about in the battlefield, causing mayhem and deaths everywhere it went. Heads would pop out from their bodies, and their headless corpses dropping to the ground. As the death toll climbed, the attacks and skills being casted at it were beginning to drop, and it allowed the Type 3 Liger beast to be more ruthless and savage in its attacks. Under the slaughter, the remaining 100 enhancers began to lose their fighting spirit, and they started to escape in different directions. Humans were, after all, different from zombies, and they would fear death when facing an indomitable existence. Ogawa eyed the Type 3 Liger beast hatefully and gritted his teeth. Shit, this time it's a failure. All of a sudden, there was a sniper gunshot, and Ogawa's head exploded in a shower of blood like a watermelon. From the grass, Yuzhong's cold eyes looked on as he kept the Falcon sniper in his hands. Although he did not know the background of Ogawa and the rest, their strength was not a joke. To him, they were a threat. Therefore, he resolved to take the strongest one out in an assassination the moment he could. Even after hearing the sniper shot, the rest of the enhancers did not turn back. They just continued to run for their lives. There was a terrifying beast behind them, and the moment they slowed down, death would fall upon their heads. After Yuzhong took out Ogawa, his right hand blazed with flames, and a devil flame spear appeared. His eyes flashed with a cold look, and he locked on the Type 3 Liger beast position. Taking a few breaths, he then threw it towards the Type 3 Liger beast as the spear turned into a flash of light and exploded on the body of the Type 3 Liger beast. With a large explosion, the devil flame spear penetrated the front leg of the Type 3 Liger beast, causing the leg to be blasted into bits and pieces. The Type 3 Liger beast immediately came to a halt as it kneeled down. Yuzhong shot forwards with both his hands blazing with devil flame, and he fired 2 more devil flame spears without wasting a beat. At this time, the Type 3 Liger beast recognized Yuzhong as its greatest threat. It forced itself to evade one of the devil flame spears, but was unfortunately besieged by the other. The devil flame spear combusted on its body, causing a large wound with blood flowing out. Waving his hands, Yuzhong brought out his stinger and fired 6 consecutive shots at the Liger beast. All 6 bullets found their target, causing the wounds on the beast to worsen. Even after suffering such extensive damage, the Type 3 Liger beast still did not die. Its eyes flashed fiercely, and it tensed its body, leaping towards Yuzhong with a speed that was just slightly slower than a Type 3 lightning. It slashed out with its claw, intending to take Yuzhong's head off. Yuzhong was expecting that move, and before the Liger beast had appeared in front of it, he had already activated his shadow steps and pulled out his black tooth blade to block in front of him. The remaining front paw slapped onto Yuzhong's black tooth blade, and a tank-like force traveled through the blade, causing Yuzhong to be sent flying backwards. As the Type 3 Liger beast launched its assault, Yuzhong's left hand also conjured out a devil flame spear that expended 80 spirit and 20 stamina to strike at the face of the Type 3 Liger beast. With a loud blast, a huge bloody hole appeared in the head of the Type 3 Liger beast, as flames still burned around the wound, causing the brain to be fried. On the other side, as Yuzhong was about to smash into a huge rock, a white shield appeared behind him. He crashed into the boulder, but the resulting force caused the shield to disintegrate before he slid to the ground, his face pale. Congratulations on achieving level 79. You've gained 2 attribute points to be allocated. A large experience orb flew into Yuzhong's body, causing him to level up. A blue treasure box also dropped beside the corpse of the Type 3 Liger beast. seeing the dead Type 3 Liger beast. A few of the escaping enhancers immediately turned back, their eyes red as they charged towards the blue treasure box. A blue treasure box definitely meant something valuable. Even if it was a blueprint, it would be a technologically advanced blueprint. If they could bring it back to Takama-ga-hara, they would instantly leap up the ranks to become important personnel. A rope suddenly shot down from a nearby large tree as it coiled towards the blue box, seemingly alive. "You're seeking death." Yu Zhong roared out with anger as he fired a devil flame ball towards the tree, causing it to combust and burn. The Japanese enhancer fell out of the tree, wailing in agony as he was burned alive. Yu Zhong didn't spare a glance for the burning Japanese enhancer, and in a flash, he appeared beside the blue treasure box and grabbed it. "Damn Chinese dog. Put that down. That's ours." One enhancer who was agility-based and level 46 wielded an odachi as he charged towards Yu Zhong with bloodshot eyes. "Go to hell." Yu Zhong shot forwards, and the black tooth blade in his hand swung down, slashing the level 46 enhancer in two. Chapter 541, Takama-ga-hara. Chapter 541, Takama-ga-hara. Seeing the level 46 agility-based enhancer being sliced in two in a single slash, the rest of the Japanese enhancers felt their hearts turn cold. This time, the hunting of the Type 3 Liger beast had gathered enhancers of at least level 30 and above. However, the majority of them were precisely around that level. It was hard to break past the level 40 stage. Hence, when the level 46 enhancer was executed by Yu Zhong, just like that, it shocked the rest of the Japanese enhancers. After killing that enhancer, Yu Zhong flashed forwards, appearing beside a strength-based enhancer. He waved his hand, and the head of the unsuspecting enhancer was sent flying even before he could react. Yu Zhong had been enhancing his agility without stop, and his current agility was very high. Even a level 40 agility-based evolver would not be able to match him. He was like a Grim Reaper, culling lives wherever he went. In just 7 steps, he took the lives of another 3 more enhancers. Strong. This Chinese is so damn strong. He's like Kami-sama from Takama-ga-hara. When the Japanese enhancers witnessed how Yu Zhong was casually killing their comrades, their hearts were filled with shock. Yu Zhong felt that he was taking too long and pulled out his stinger. He then fired 5 shots in an instant, causing the heads of 5 enhancers to burst in a mess of blood and brain matter. "Stop! Don't kill me! I surrender!" One of the enhancers could not take the terror anymore and screamed out as he kneeled. As the enhancer took the initiative to surrender, 6 others also followed suit and began crying for their lives. There were 5 others who weren't willing and quickly tried to run. Yu Zhong eyed the escaping enhancers, and his eyes narrowed coldly. With a wave, 5 fireballs shot out towards the 5 enhancers, and upon contact, they immediately combusted. The 5 enhancers died, screaming as they burned to death. When the 7 enhancers witnessed this, their bodies trembled uncontrollably, and they turned to look at Yu Zhong, unsure of how this Chinese would deal with them. All of a sudden, 4 transport carriers lifted into the skies before flying into a cluster of clouds and disappearing. Transport carriers. This Japanese faction actually has them. If only they were mine. Yu Zhong eyed those vehicles as his eyes flashed with a hint of jealousy and pity. Yu Zhong was currently lacking large aerial transport means. If he had those large transport carriers, then he could deploy his troops anywhere he liked. In China prior to the apocalypse, the rails went everywhere and fulfilled the needs of transport. Deployment of troops was mainly through the movement of trains. However, when the apocalypse happened, there were zombies and mutant beasts everywhere. Many areas were now inhabited by monsters. It was impractical to rely on the tracks to deploy troops. Only the usage of transport carriers would make sense. The Kingdom of God was conquering Europe, but they had managed to spare some attention on Asia. This was because of their possession of such carriers, which allowed them to travel to all corners of the world. Yu Zhong stood and eyed the surrendered Japanese enhancers, asking coldly in Chinese, "Who knows how to speak Chinese here?" The 7 men looked at each other helplessly. Chinese was not like English, which was more widely used. Unless there was someone with the intention to expand in China, there were few Japanese who went to pick up Chinese on their own. One middle-aged man who had a medium build and ordinary looks hesitated a while before speaking up. "I know some Chinese." "Your name?" "Ability." "My name is Muto Shin. My ability is the level 2 high-speed movement." Yu Zhong fixed his piercing gaze on Shin and asked, "Good. From now on, you're the leader of this group. They're your subordinates. I'll ask you this. Who are you people, and what faction were you from?" Muto Shin hesitated for a moment before gritting his teeth and spilling his background. "Yes, sir. We're servants of the gods from Takama-ga-hara. Every country would possess those with no backbones." This Muto Shin was a classic example. He literally spilled the beans on all that he was and knew, hoping to gain favor with Yu Zhong. Hearing Muto Shin's explanation, Yu Zhong finally understood their background. Takama-ga-hara was, according to myths, the land of the Japanese gods. Right as the apocalypse started, a wealthy leader of a large business conglomerate had survived due to luck. His successor had also awakened as an evolver. He reorganized the survivors and remaining factions and accepted any survivors, thus forming a powerful group known as Takama-ga-hara. In the faction, divine soldiers were the lowest grade soldiers, while divine servants were enhancers above level 30. Deities were enhancers above level 50, and at the pinnacle, there were kamies, the highest level of experts. There were only 5 of them in the entire Takama-ga-hara. Each and every one of them possessed terrifying strength, and the leader of them all was called Nindori Tatsuo, a powerful evolver. Due to the faction establishing early, they managed to gather more than 500,000 people. They even managed to conquer the Nagano prefecture, claiming it as a base. Japan's Nagano was on par with any Chinese city, with over 2 million people before the apocalypse, and being able to occupy such a huge territory was a sign of Takama-ga-hara's power. 500,000 survivors, a truly large faction. Yu Zhong frowned when he heard that. He could feel a sense of foreboding just hearing about their accomplishments. While Takama-ga-hara was not comparable with the Kingdom of God, it was near China. If they were to expand in power, in a few years, by the time they absorbed the rest of the powers in Japan, they might instigate the next Sino-Japan War. As they were on a separate island, they had very few strategic options. They longed to expand outwards, and in truth, it was the only possible strategy. However, to other countries, it was a huge problem. Yu Zhong quickly threw all vexing thoughts to the back of his head. He had to consider his next move. It's currently an unfounded worry. No matter what happens, I need to make going back to China my priority. I need a broadcast station, an airplane, and a pilot. Yu Zhong was extremely clear about his own power. He was strong, but not invincible. If he were to charge in single-handedly against Takama-ga-hara, it would be suicidal. Yu Zhong then ordered Shin, "Go gather everything from here." "Fine." Shin and the rest immediately responded respectfully and began to collect the equipment and stuff from their dead comrades. Yu Zhong opened up the blue treasure box, and with a bright blue flash, a blueprint appeared in front of him. Level 7 treasure, Sky Fortress laser, secondary cannon diagram. One part of the full Sky Fortress design. The components of the designs consist of power furnace, main cannon, outer hull, secondary cannons, structural design, power system, and operating system. A total of 7 separate diagrams. When all 7 are collected, the full and complete Sky Fortress diagram will be obtained. Yu Zhong eyed the diagram in his hands, and his eyes flashed with a glint of pity. Sky Fortress. This is definitely a powerful war fortress. Otherwise, it wouldn't require so many diagrams and components. What a pity, it requires 7 of them. Who knows how many donkey years it will take to collect them. However, the might of the secondary laser cannon was not to be disregarded. Even if there was no way to fit on a Sky Fortress now, it could still act as a powerful weapon. He kept the design carefully in his storage ring before going over to collect the blood essence and nuclei from the dead-type 3 Liger beast. On the other side, since Yuzhong had left for a long period, Honda's eyes gleamed strangely. One other thug exchanged a look with Honda before they took a step towards Kyoko. Their gaze was unkindly. "Don't come over, what are you guys doing?" Kyoko was on extreme alert, and she retreated while staring at the thug. Honda tried to plead with Kyoko. "Kyoko-san, let's run together. That Chinese man is like a devil, and he obviously has some bias against us Japanese. He might just kill all of us." Kyoko eyed them coldly and barked. "Master has ordered us to stay. Are you thinking of disobeying?" Honda's eyes flashed with another strange glint. "What about this? You let us go, Kyoko-san. You can stay here on your own." As long as they could leave, Honda would bring the rest back to the village and rape Kaori and the rest. Kyoko lifted the guns and retreated further, her gaze piercing. "No way. You guys have to stay here." Honda's face sunk and he barked, "Do it." "Capture her." The remaining thugs leaped into action, their eyes gleaming with a greedy and perverse look. They wanted to press this beautiful woman beneath their bodies and rape her thoroughly. At this point, Kyoko also took action, as she took 5 steps back while firing her gun at the thugs. Pong! Pong! A few rounds penetrated the bodies of the thugs, and they fell on the ground, their blood flowing profusely. Chapter 542, Surrender. Chapter 542, Surrender. Go to hell. The thugs knew that this was a critical moment, and they charged towards Kyoko in rage, intending to subdue her. One of the thugs was an agility-based enhancer, and his speed was faster than the rest. He was the first to reach Kyoko and made a grab for her viciously. As the thug was about to grab her, Kyoko's eyes flashed with a chilly light, and she pulled out the incredibly sharp odachi by her waist, slicing the thug in two. Fresh blood splattered onto her, covering her beautiful looks with a huge bloody stench. It was as though she was a blood-colored rose with thorns. As they saw their comrades sliced in two, the lack of Kyoko's hesitation caused them to feel a chill in their hearts. They were momentarily stunned and stopped in their tracks. A person who could use guns and swords to kill was not easy to deal with. Honda tried to shout, "Everybody, attack! She's but one woman. After we conquer her, you guys can fuck her first. I'll be last. We don't have a choice anymore. The moment that Chinese dog discovers that we want to escape, we will all be killed without fail. Now's the best chance to do what we need to do." With his words, the rest were pushed a step forwards, having lost their rationality. Kyoko's eyes gleamed, and she employed a strange footwork, charging into the midst of the thugs like a female leopard. The odachi in her hand danced, and she began to slaughter the thugs. Soon, the field was littered with corpses, while Kyoko stood alone. She was covered in blood and was panting slightly as she looked at the corpses. As she looked around, her face turned pale, and she began to double over near a tree and threw up whatever she ate the day before. It was the first time that she had actually slaughtered real humans, and seeing the result of her actions, she could not help but become nauseous. There were 2 experts from the small Japanese village. One was Kyoko, the other was Kaori. They were both enhancers. It was just that their levels were low. Kaori had been a kendo practitioner before the apocalypse, while Kyoko was a successor of the Tenshin-style sword arts. After becoming an enhancer, she was even stronger than common enhancers her level with her elite swordsmanship. Killing is truly unbearable, Kyoko thought to herself. She had killed a number of zombies, but when it came to killing a live human, it was hard for her to accept. Yuzhong brought Mudo Shin and the rest at that time, and he looked at Kyoko with a little surprise, but didn't go. He had assumed that Kyoko would have left stealthily. After all, most modern people weren't willing to be another's slave. Just one look at a beauty like Kyoko would cause one to believe she had been brought up under the most care and would definitely not be willing to submit to others. Your orders were to stay here. Kyoko looked straight at Yuzhong and explained, before pointing to the corpses of the thugs and continuing. These men not only tried to escape, they also wanted to make a move on me, so I killed them. If I didn't handle it well, please punish me accordingly. Yu Zhong chuckled mildly and threw a set of equipment to her. Well done. This is your reward. When Muto Shin saw the set of equipment, their eyes turned red. That was one of the equipment that Yu Zhong had obtained from one of the deity-level experts of the Takama-ga-hara. It was sufficient to give a person a heaven-shaking transformation. Upon receiving the equipment, a look of excitement passed in Kyoko's eyes, and she could not help but express her gratitude. Thank you, Master, for your gift. The set of equipment was enough to bolster her combat strength to at least 4 times her current power, so she was naturally excited. Let's go. Yu Zhong did not even spare a glance for Honda's corpse as he continued forward. The group continued their journey through the forest, and it wasn't long before over 100 mutant Japanese monkeys appeared. This group of mutant Japanese monkeys was easily taken out by Kyoko, who had worn the equipment. She also swiftly rose another 2 levels. Due to the large areas that the forest covered in Japan, there were many mutant beasts and a wide diversity of life. Soon after they cleared the mutant Japanese monkeys, a whole group of lower-level mutant lizards and mutant yellow snakes appeared. They were also quickly taken care of by Kyoko and the other enhancers. Yu Zhong only struck out thrice to save Kyoko when she was in peril. After all, each and every single type and variant of the mutant beasts were not simple to deal with. Without Yu Zhong's protection, Kyoko would have died thrice over. Kill! Wipe them out! As Yu Zhong's group continued through the forest, they suddenly chanced upon enraged cries. He swiftly led them towards the source of the commotion. Out in a field, there were 2 groups of Japanese survivors currently facing off against each other. There were over 100 people in one group, each of them wielding odachis, and their movements were nimble. They were obviously enhancers, just that their levels were not too high. The other group only had 60 of them, and they were on the losing end. There were only about 13 guns shared among them, and they were relying on these guns to hold their ground. Otherwise, they would have long been killed. In their midst, there were 20 women and children, which greatly affected their combat strength. So it was just dogs biting dogs. Yu Zhong eyed the 2 groups without a look of concern. Yu Zhong could see that there were only 2 enhancers above level 30 among the 2 groups, and facing such a group, he wouldn't even need to employ any skills. He could single-handedly take them all out. Just as Yu Zhong's group arrived to watch the events unfold, one of the enhancers of above level 35 had just chopped off the head of one gun-wielding enhancer, breaking the stalemate. Another gun-wielding survivor was suddenly stabbed in the back by a level 36 enhancer that had stealthily appeared behind him, striking his heart. With the 2 defense points crumbling, the odachi-wielding survivors immediately surged forth like tigers, making their way towards the gun-wielding survivors. Many of the survivors immediately abandoned their guns and kneeled to surrender. However, the odachi-wielding survivors just roared out with laughter and carried out their slaughter. The female survivors within the losing group were dragged and thrown to the ground before being raped on the spot. Since the apocalypse began, many people had already succumbed to their inner demons, and these thugs were no exception. Grab them! Just then, the leader of the odachi-wielding group caught sight of Yu Zhong and his people, and he roared out. Hearing that order, 60 of the assailants immediately made for Yu Zhong's direction. Kill them all. Yu Zhong watched as they came closer and gave a cold order to Muto Shin and his men. Hi! Muto Shin immediately saluted and shouted to the rest in Japanese. Yu Zhong-sama has ordered us to kill those trash. Charge with me. After that, he led the 6 enhancers who were divine servants level that had submitted to Yu Zhong and charged toward the assailants. While these 7 divine servants might not be much to Yu Zhong, they were truly invincible existences when compared to ordinary survivors. As they charged into the midst of the enemy that were 10 times their number, their blades flashed about, and the assailants were slaughtered mercilessly. After all, divine servants were an elite group that was nurtured by the Takama-ga-hara faction through their resources. Their combat prowess was comparable to Yu Zhong's elite soldiers. Muto Shin and the rest killed over 23 of the assailants before the rest started to feel the regret and tried escaping backward. The Japanese leader saw this, and a look of shock flashed past his face as he muttered, "Why is it like this? Who are these people? How come they're so strong?" All of a sudden, a shadow shot down from a tree with lightning speed towards Yu Zhong. His speed had reached over 10 times that of a normal person. This was the level 36 enhancer that had assassinated the gun-wielding survivor earlier. Even an ordinary level 40 enhancer would not have a nice ending if caught unprepared. Just as the shadow was about to reach Yu Zhong pulled out his crocodile tooth saw blade and slashed down. The two parts of the body fell to the ground in a gory manner. "Surrender! I surrender! Don't kill me! I surrender!" The Japanese leader watched in horror as his comrade of a similar level was taken out in one move, and his heart chilled. He immediately knelt down and began to beg for mercy. The moment the leader surrendered, the rest of the assailants began to abandon their weapons and cry out for mercy as well. "Go to hell! Go to hell! Go to hell!" The 7 Takama-ga-hara divine servants continued to slaughter the assailants who had surrendered. This Takama-ga-hara people were ruthless, and killing gave them a morbid sense of excitement and pleasure. Kyoko watched on in horror and screamed out, "Stop it! Stop killing! They already surrendered." Shin replied coldly, "Kyoko-san, Yu Zhong-sama has given the order to wipe them all out. Without completing his order, we will not stop." Chapter 543, Valley. Chapter 543, Valley. Kyoko immediately kneeled in front of Yu Zhong and begged, "Master, please command them to stop. Otherwise, those innocent survivors will be killed by them." Yu Zhong looked at Muto Shin and his men slaughtering the other Japanese with glee, thinking silently for a while before giving an order indifferently. "All right, enough." Indeed, Yu Zhong had intended for Shin and his group to eradicate all the Japanese survivors. After all, it would be the Japanese against each other, and he didn't really feel any emotions. However, he caught sight of 2 little girls amongst the survivors and suddenly felt unwilling to go through with the massacre. Muto Shin immediately barked loudly. "Yu Zhong-sama has given his order. Stop." "Hi." Wakara Mishita understood. Hearing Shin's orders, the 6 enhancers immediately kept their weapons, looking at the survivors as though they were livestock. The nature of reverence for the strong was etched deep in the Japanese bones. Yu Zhong's strength was comparable to the Kami-s of the Takama-ga-hara. After submitting to him, they really complied with his orders. Japan was a country that focused on hierarchy, regardless of context, work, school, gatherings, even the Yakuza. The strong and upper class would always be treated with respect. Otherwise, it would be hard to survive. Honda and the rest of thugs were still youths of the society and had no intention of truly submitting to Yu Zhong. Hence, they had wanted to rebel and escape from him. That was why they disobeyed his orders. With the threat of death looming over their heads, the 100-plus Japanese survivors trembled. They were unsure of how Yu Zhong was going to deal with them, given that he was Chinese. After all, Yu Zhong had been conversing in Chinese with Shin, and the survivors instantly guessed his background. Yu Zhong came up to the leader and spoke. "What's your name?" Muto Shin stepped forwards and acted as a translator, posing the question once more in Japanese. Yu Zhong would usually want the other party to accommodate him, and not the other way around. Muto Shin was not the strongest among the 7 divine servants of Takama-ga-hara. However, he became the leader purely because he knew Chinese. The Japanese leader quickly got on his knees in front of Yu Zhong and spoke in Japanese. "Sir, I'm called Kira Waichi. I'm willing to swear fealty. Please accept me." One young Japanese roared out furiously. "Leader Waichi, he's a Chinese dog. How can you kneel?" Yu Zhong looked at the youth with the outburst and spoke coldly. "Kill him." "Hi." Shin shot forwards, and his blade swung down on the head of the Japanese youth. With a spray of blood, The corpse of the youth slumped to the ground. Witnessing this cruel scene, shock was written all over the faces of the survivors. They felt their bodies shiver more, and their hearts filled with fear. Yu Zhong was not a good-tempered person. Upon reaching here, he had been dealing with xenophobia every step of the way. This only served to fuel his foul mood, and he wanted to kill some people to make an example. Hero Weiqi kneeled silently, afraid that he would be next. He could tell that even if all 100 of them charged at this Chinese man, he would be able to wipe them out easily. Yu Zhong eyed Weiqi coldly. "I'm Yu Zhong. I'll accept you. Bring me to your base." It was nearing evening, and Yu Zhong needed a place to rest. The forests were too dangerous and was not suitable for resting. Weiqi stood up and bowed in respect. "Hi." Led by Weiqi, Yu Zhong and his group came to a valley surrounded by mountains on 3 different sides. There was only one access point. This valley used to be the private property of an influential businessman, and there were many luxurious villas within. Around the main mansion, there were a few small wooden houses that were erected recently. The main villa was the living quarters of Weiqi and his trusted aides, as well as women. The rest of the wooden houses belonged to the ordinary members and the slaves that they have caught. Slavery seemed like a thing of the past, but in fact, it was still persistent in modern society. Even prior to the apocalypse, slavery was rampant in Africa. When the apocalypse happened, society crumbled. Before societal and cultural norms regained their footing, all sorts of weird characters had appeared. It was no surprise that slavery was popular again. Even Yu Zhong's establishments had slaves. The vast majority of them were the spoils of war between him and Wu Yanhong, and they were branded as slaves to make up for the atrocities against the Chinese. He was likewise merciless to the families of his enemies. There were about 400 survivors in the valley. The moment Yu Zhong's group walked in, everyone stepped out to look at them curiously. Yu Zhong looked towards the survivors, noticing that most of them looked sallow and lacked nutrition. It felt like they could fall with just a blow of a wind. Yu Zhong eyed them, and a strange glint flashed in his eyes. He was somewhat pleased. "This place can't compare to my Guaning city." Yu Zhong had established some form of society in Guaning City and Longhai City. As long as he didn't die, and his resources didn't run out, the stability of his cities would not crumble. An established city was definitely a lot stronger than this small faction of Weiqi. "Welcome back, master." The moment Weiqi and Yu Zhong stepped into the villa, 6 beauties between the ages of 18 to 25 immediately came up to greet them in a bow. One particular 25-year-old had a voluptuous body, and there was a beauty mark at the corner of her lips. She came in to lead Weiqi and Yu Zhong's group further within the villa into a large hall. Weiqi gave an order to the beauty, "Masako, from today onwards, this Yu Zhong-sama is our leader. You must be obedient and attend to his needs. Go get Shirayuki and Asami to come and serve Yu Zhong-sama." "Yes," Masako replied respectfully before retreating. Weiqi then turned to Yu Zhong with a smile. "Sir, Masako is the butler of this villa. She specializes in training other women. Regardless of the type of women, under her training, they would become obedient and docile." "Oh," Yu Zhong replied absent-mindedly. Not long after, Masako led 2 beautiful Japanese women in kimonos into the hall. One had doll-like features, long slender legs, and fair skin. Her bountiful chest threatened to push out her clothes, and she wore an extremely sweet smile on her face. The other had an oval-shaped face, her skin as fair as snow, and her frame slender. Her chest wasn't as impressive as the other, but her exquisite features looked as though she was a beautiful painting that had come to life. Masako immediately introduced them to Yu Zhong. "Yu Zhong-sama, this here is Sakura Shirayuki, and this is Amano Asami. Both of them have never been touched by any men and are still virgins. Shirayuki, Asami, come over here to greet the master." The 2 beauties were reserved by Weiqi to tend to experts, or to be given as gifts as a form of a bargaining chip. He had a number of beauties with him, but they were the only 2 remaining virgins. The busted doll-like beauty was Shiroyuki, while the other exquisite beauty was Asami. "We greet Master." The two beauties stepped up and executed a Japanese-style greeting. Yu Zhong replied mildly, "Get up." He had seen his fair share of beauties and would naturally not lose himself over the sight of two more. The two beauties continued to smile sweetly as they sat down on either side of Yu Zhong and began to massage him. "Damn it," Kyoko thought unhappily to herself as she watched the two women. Waichi looked on before asking carefully, "Sir, what is your next step?" "Yama County. I'm making my way there." Yu Zhong replied indifferently while on the sofa. Shiroyuki, who was kneeling by Yu Zhong's left side, carefully placed his hands into her clothes in between her deep cleavage. Yu Zhong twisted forcefully as a bouncy yet smooth and alluring feeling traveled up his fingertips. Shiroyuki's face flushed red. However, she continued to help Yu Zhong massage his leg. When Waichi heard what Yu Zhong said, his eyes lit up in joy. "Yama County. Sir, you truly are an ambitious man. Shimazu Yuji is the current leader over the 10,000-strong establishment. You actually want to kill him and take it over. Truly admirable." Currently, Japan had returned to its feudal periods, and there were various factions vying for power. Many warlords sought to become the leader of Japan. Waichi thought that Yu Zhong wanted to be one of the contenders. In the apocalyptic world, whoever had the strongest fist would be the leader. With Yu Zhong's strength, it was truly enough to vie for the position of leader. If Yu Zhong were successful, Waichi would become a renowned figure as well. Yu Zhong saw how excited Waichi was and did not dampen his spirits. His only intention was to use the broadcast station there. He laughed mildly and assumed a superior look as he asked, "If I want to bring Yama County down, what good ideas might you have?" Hearing this question, Waichi sunk into silence. Yama County's Shimazu clan was truly a powerful foe, and he was like an ant to them. He had no means of even launching an attack against them. Therefore, it was a difficult question that Yu Zhong was posing to him. Chapter 544, Battle in the Valley. Chapter 544, Battle in the Valley. Waichi thought hard and long before replying slowly, "Sir, the Shimazu clan is truly powerful. Even if, sir, you are invincible and can fight against gods and devils, you can't afford to just charge in like this. There are still other factions like the Saishima, Kiwa, and Yoshida establishments around. If we can conquer them and assimilate them into our forces, we would possess enough capacity to contend with the Shimazu clan." There were various factions of different strengths if one wanted to expand one's strength. The only way was to swallow the other smaller factions. Waichi had intended to do just that. That was why he had launched an assault on the smaller factions nearby. However, Yu Zhong wasn't too interested in establishing a huge faction here in Japan. Although the Japanese revered the strong, there was a strong xenophobia. With his strength, it wasn't a problem to form a decent-sized base. However, it would be much tougher to expand and contend against Takama-ga-hara. After all, it would be increasingly hard to find trustworthy subordinates. Even if Waichi and Mudo Shin were both at his command, the moment a strong enemy appeared, Yu Zhong would have to be on his guard against these two fellows while fighting off the enemy. After all, they were now listening to him purely because they had no choice. It wasn't out of their own free will. Right at this time, a middle-aged man of about 37 years old, wearing an eye patch, came storming into the villa. He had a suit, and there was a long blade at his waist. He even emitted a strong killing intent as he barked out coldly, "You pathetic trash dare to even dream about taking on the glorious Shimazu clan? What a bunch of fools." 8 other men came storming behind him, each of them wearing male kimonos. Waichi's face turned ugly when he saw how brazen these 9 intruders were, pulling out his odachi at his waist as he barked, "Who are you people?" This was a relatively unknown place, and ordinary people would not be able to just barge in. It was obvious that they did not come with good intentions. The guy with the eye patch looked at Waichi coldly and ordered, "I'm Kawada Masashi from the Shimazu clan." "Kira Waichi, I had originally intended to let you live and allow you to join our Shimizu clan. However, you dared to collude with the Chinese. You're a failure to our glorious race. Today, I shall wipe you off the face of the earth. Kill him. Sir, save me. Weiqi's level was only at 38, and he was definitely not a match against 4 enhancers above his level. As the 4 enhancers were about to slice Weiqi, Yuzhong, whose left hand was still in between the huge breasts of Shiroyuki, raised his stinger with his right hand and fired 4 consecutive shots. Pung, 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 pung. Just as the audacious of the 4 enhancers were about to land on Weiqi's body, their heads were instantly blasted into smithereens, blood and brain matter splattering onto the floor. Yuzhong's agility was at 203, and he had a reaction speed 20 times of an ordinary person. This had already exceeded a Type 2 lightning speed. Even a level 40 agility-based evolver could not surpass him. The speed of those 4 enhancers might seem lightning-quick to most, but to Yuzhong, they were as slow as ants. So strong, Weiqi saw the fate of those enhancers and sucked in a ragged breath, turning behind to look at the indifferent Yuzhong. His eyes flashed with delight. If it wasn't for Yuzhong, he would have already been halfway to heaven, his body dismembered. Seeing how casually Yuzhong had disposed of 4 agility enhancers, Masashi and the remaining 4 men had looks of disbelief on their faces, and they took a few steps back involuntarily. Yuzhong sat at his seat like a killing god and shot the intruders a cold glare. Kneel down, or die. Masashi immediately bowed down apologetically. Esteemed one, I'm Kawada Masashi from the Shimizu clan. This time, we had unknowingly offended you and incurred your wrath. We seek your mercy and magnanimity in allowing us to leave. Our Shimizu clan will definitely offer you beautiful virgins and precious rations as a token of apology. Masashi had brought his men intending to wipe out Weiqi's faction, thinking that it would be a breeze. Only 8 of his subordinates were enough to overcome all of Weiqi's forces. The only problem was that they could not have possibly foreseen the arrival of Yuzhong. Go to hell. Yuzhong eyed the 5 of them coldly and fired another 5 shots with the stinger. Pung, pung. After 5 consecutive shots rang out, the heads of Masashi and his men were instantly blasted. Not a single person could react in time. Strong. So terrifying. Weiqi, Shin looked at Yuzhong, who had fired without talking, their hearts filled with mixed emotions. They were excited because they had the backing of such a terrifying expert. Any ordinary factions that dared to provoke them would be courting death. The fear, however, was that Yuzhong was likely to kill more than he spoke, and they were truly terrified that Yuzhong might just kill them without saying anything. Shiroyuki and Asami, who had been kneeling and watching, saw the instantaneous deaths of those 9 intruders, had their bodies froze. They had just witnessed Yuzhong's cold-blooded killing of the people from the Shimizu clan, and knew that if this person was provoked, even they would not be spared. While most people thought of the modern Japanese man as gentle, in truth, many of them were still chauvinists. In this apocalypse, just like any other man who had given into their inner demons, many had become vile and perverse. There was no remorse in the slaughter. Back then, during the rape of Nanking, many female corpses were carted out of the cities in trucks to be buried. A subordinate covered in blood ran into the hall in an extremely pitiful state and hollered, "Sir, sir, there are many intruders out there now. The Saishima, Kiwa, and Yoshida factions have just brought their men over. The valley is already under attack, and they're charging in." What? When Weiqi heard those words, his face fell. They were still in the midst of a discussion on how to swallow those families. Who would have thought they actually came to attack first? "Sir, please lend us a hand and eliminate those intruders." Weiqi got on his knees and begged Yuzhong. Every single one of those factions was individually more powerful than Weiqi's faction, and now all 3 were attacking them at the same time. Yuzhong removed his left hand from Shiroyuki's kimono and stood up. As he stood up, the floorboard suddenly split open, and a shadow appeared in a flash. striking at Yu Zhong's heart. This shadow was the top assassin of the Shimazu clan, a ninja that was level 53. He was extremely skilled in the art of assassination, and even level 60 or 70 enhancers would not necessarily survive an assassination attempt of his. "Watch out!" Kyoko screamed out. In the entire hall, she was the only one that truly cared for his well-being. "Will he die?" Shin looked at the ninja with a worried look. The assassin had appeared too suddenly, and Shin did not dare to guarantee that a Kami-sama level expert from Takama-ga-hara would be able to survive that assassination. Too slow. Just as the ninja reached Yu Zhong's eyes flashed coldly, and he sent an explosive fist towards the face of the ninja. A 10-time strength came blasting into the ninja's face, breaking his nose and denting his head inwards. The ninja's body was sent flying through the hall and knocked into a wall before sliding down and becoming motionless. He was dead. Waichi could not help but shudder and thought to himself, "This guy's insane. Even this was not enough to take him out. He's too scary." If it had been Waichi, his head would have already been separated from his body before he even knew what was going on. "Come with me." Yu Zhong looked at Kyoko before striding out the door. "Yes." Kyoko's eyes lit up in joy as she scampered after him. Shin looked at Kyoko's back, and his eyes had a strange look. Seems like Kyoko does possess a position in his heart, second only to that humanoid weapon on his back. Yu Zhong walked out the villa, only to see a messy scene out in the valley. Many survivors were currently running towards the villa. Every single militant that had intruded were vicious and cruel, laughing savagely as they killed the survivors who were trying to escape. Many of them grabbed women and tore their clothes off before proceeding to violate them. There were many families living in the numerous wooden huts. Some women were also malnourished and weak, but it didn't matter to those militants. Those who weren't good-looking were instead tortured by their weapons, and there were all sorts of maniacal laughter and screams of misery resounding throughout the valley. The perverse militants didn't even spare any of the young girls or boys, taking off their clothes and raping them. There were a few militants who began setting fire to the wooden huts, causing them to burn up. The entire valley looked like a scene right out of hell. Chapter 545, Defeating the Three Clan Alliance. Chapter 545, Defeating the Three Clan Alliance. Yu Zhong looked at the cruel hell-like scene in front of him as he pulled out his 2M long black tooth blade to slice a militant in front of him in two. Yu Zhong ordered Shin beside him, "Go. Kill all the intruders." "Fine." Shin and Waichi replied respectfully and roared out loudly, "Kill all intruders." Under Yu Zhong's orders, the combined forces of Shin and Waichi charged towards the militants who were currently raping women. The militants of the three factions were so engrossed in their vile acts that they lost all bearings of discipline. Yu Zhong brought Kyoko as he continued outwards, not caring about the slaughter amongst the Japanese people. Any enhancer or militant that took action against him would be instantly killed, their bodies sliced in two. Yu Zhong's appearance was like an undefeatable general that stormed the battlefield, giving Shin, Waichi, and their troops a boosted morale, while at the same time pressurizing the enemies who tried to retreat when they could. However, after a bout of shouts, three teams consisting of about 20 to 30 people suddenly appeared. Their moves were not ordinary, and they began to launch a counterattack on Shin and Weichi's forces. Enhancers! Yu Zhong saw those soldiers, and his pupils constricted, recognizing that they were all enhancers. These 30 men were the joint elites of the Saishima, Kiwa, and Yoshida factions. Every one of them were above level 20, and were the precious soldiers of the Alliance. They were considered the trump cards as well. Without hesitating, Yu Zhong activated his shadow steps and flew into the midst of one of the teams. His black tooth blade began to swing around like a meat grinder, slicing all the enhancers in a 5M radius into two. Within 10 seconds, 20 enhancers were slaughtered, and the troops were basically annihilated by Yu Zhong, with the remaining soldiers trying to escape. "Go to hell!" Among the Japanese, there were a few that were unafraid of death. They surrounded Yu Zhong, roaring in fury to disperse the fear in their hearts as they charged at him. Facing the kamikaze attacks of those 8 militants, Yu Zhong scoffed and unleashed 8 blade beams, instantly slicing the 8 militants apart. Fresh blood sprayed everywhere in a gory manner. Demon! He's a demon! Help! Seeing how easily Yu Zhong killed 8 agility-based enhancers, the rest of the 3 teams got frightened out of their wits. They began to escape in various directions. Get on the ground, or you can die. Yu Zhong shot forwards and killed 1 escaping enhancer before barking loudly. Kneel! We'll kill those who disobey. Shin heard Yu Zhong's orders and immediately shouted out in Japanese. Kneel! We'll kill those who disobey. On the battlefield, the Japanese troops under Yu Zhong began to shout across the battlefield. The elites had been wiped out pitifully by Yu Zhong, causing the morale and spirit of the other soldiers to crumble. They hurriedly abandoned their weapon and got on the ground. The enhancers of the 3 factions also kneeled to surrender to Yu Zhong. They were, after all, ordinary people prior to the apocalypse, and lost their courage the moment death seemed inevitable. There were both male and female enhancers among the intruding troops of the Saishima, Kiwa, and Yoshida factions. When the oppressed saw that their enemies had been subdued, they instantly surrounded the female enhancers and began to tear their clothes off to rape them on the spot. Some of them were even perverse enough to grab an odachi to pierce some of the female enhancers, cutting new wounds and causing moans of agony. The tortured had become the torturers. In fact, they were even more vicious and cruel. Those female enhancers were like top existences, which gave rise to a desire in the soldiers to torture them. Ha ha ha! One soldier was currently raping a woman while excitedly carving the woman's skin with his odachi. The woman was covered in bloody wounds, yet he continued to laugh with glee. Yu Zhong frowned and immediately shot forward to behead the soldier, as a shower of blood splattered all over the Japanese woman. The naked Japanese woman just laid there numbly, her eyes devoid of any emotions. She had already suffered plenty of humiliation at the hands of other men, even before becoming an enhancer. It was just a repeat of events to her. However, the rest of the soldiers were all stunned when they saw Yu Zhong slaughtering his own subordinate, and stopped whatever they were doing, eyeing him helplessly. Yu Zhong swept a gaze across the field as his cold voice rang out. If you want women, sure. However, it must be through proper protocol. Before I assign any to you, they're all spoils of war. Whoever dares to use them, I will kill him. These militants weren't Chinese anyway, and Yu Zhong had no qualms killing them. Furthermore, even if they all decide to revolt, he was more than enough to wipe them out. Hearing his words, the militants began dressing again, looking at the women somewhat unwillingly. Compared to the women, they valued their lives more. Furthermore, they knew that Yu Zhong himself had caused the defeat of the 3-clan alliance. He was practically a demon on the battlefield, and no one dared challenge his authority. 3 of the captives came in front of him and kneeled down as they spoke. Sir, I'm the head of Saishima Kiwa Yoshida clan, Saishima Shoei / Kiwa Masataka / Shinji Yoshida. Today, we had unknowingly offended, sir, and we seek your forgiveness. We're willing to pledge the allegiance of the Saishima, Kiwa, Yoshida factions and join your power. Waichi quickly came up to Yu Zhong and spoke urgently. Sir, they're not joining with good intentions. This is the time to kill them and assimilate their troops. The 3 clans were all larger than Waichi's factions, and he was afraid that once the 3 clans joined, they would become a faction larger than him. That was why he wanted to prevent that. Of course, Waichi's suggestion was not wrong. If Yu Zhong really wanted to establish a faction that truly belonged to him in Japan, he had to wipe out the previous leaders and take in their subordinates. When the 3 clan leaders heard Waichi's words, they were filled with hatred and killing intent towards him. However, they did not dare step out of line as they watched Yu Zhong carefully, unsure how he would deal with them. Yu Zhong eyed Wei Qi coldly. Wei Qi, when has it been your turn to make decisions for me? Wei Qi's heart turned cold, and he immediately kneeled and kowtowed. I apologize. Sir, please forgive my mistake. Yu Zhong glanced at the three leaders and spoke. From today on, you three are my subordinates. Work hard for me, or you'll face death. Hi. The three leaders responded in a resounding yes. Yu Zhong asked, among you guys, who knows Chinese? I do. Saishima Shoei spoke up in slightly broken Chinese. I was interested in the rich culture and history of China and its 5,000 years of heritage. When I was young, I had wanted to study in China, but unfortunately, I did not get the chance to. Yu Zhong immediately gave an order. Good. From today on, Saishima Shoei, Kira Wei Qi, Muto Shin, and Ida Kyoko. You four will be the elders of this establishment. Kyoko is the first elder, Shin is the second elder, Wei Qi is the third elder, and Shoei will be the fourth elder. Kiwa Masataka and Shinji Yoshida will follow Kyoko. Many thanks, sir. Shoei immediately bowed in gratitude. He was jubilant that his past decision to learn Chinese had paid off today, earning him a position in this faction. The other two clan leaders were filled with envy. Wei Qi felt sour in his heart as well. Damn it, if only I knew Chinese as well. If I hadn't given Shirayuki and Asami to Sir, I might not have even gotten this elder position. I must work harder to learn Chinese and become a trusted aide of Yu Zhong-sama. Upon returning to the villa, Yu Zhong asked Shoei, was this operation instigated by the Shimizu clan, Saishima head? Shoei looked at Yu Zhong and replied, yes. Sir, this time, it was the Shimizu clan who ordered us to come. They had promised that if we can conquer Wei Qi's faction, he would allow us to join the Shimizu clan, plus there would be no change to our current control. In this apocalypse, it was hard for the smaller factions to survive. If they could join a larger faction and still retain their own troops and control, it was an attractive offer. Of course, in doing so, there would be potential problems in the long run as well. The various factions within the larger faction could potentially overthrow the main power should they all ally together. Yu Zhong thought for a while before asking, what was the most recent activity on the Shimizu side? Saishima Shoei gave an important intel to Yu Zhong. Yama County is currently facing a strange movement from the zombie horde nearby. In 4 days, the horde will reach the base of the Shimizu clan. Chapter 546, Enjoyment. Chapter 546, Enjoyment. Oh, so there was something like that. Yu Zhong's eyebrows arched slightly, and he understood why the Shimizu clan would suddenly recruit and absorb other factions. A horde attack was a huge headache for any faction. Yu Zhong had fended off a number of hordes himself, and each time, the expenditure of ammo and casualties would cause him to be frustrated. Without enough manpower, he would have lost all of his troops. The Shimizu clan obviously intended to gather the surrounding factions to fight off the horde together. Yu Zhong then asked a few more questions before dismissing them. You can go. Hi. Shoei and the rest left the room. Sir, the hot water in the bath is ready. Would you like to use it now? After Shoei and the rest left, the voluptuous and beautiful Masako came in, asking respectfully. Masako had been an instructor for females prior to the apocalypse, and she was well-versed in Japanese, Chinese, English, Russian, French, German, and a few other languages. Conversing with Yu Zhong in Chinese was no problem for her. And, take me there. Yu Zhong had fought and killed a fair share of his enemies, and he needed a bath to wash off the blood. Masako led Yu Zhong to the huge bathroom of the villa. In the middle of the marble-paved flooring, there was a huge pool the size of 400 SQM. There was even a small faux hill in the middle where hot water would flow out from, filling the pool. The steam was very dense as it rose and filled up the room. Within the pool, 8 beauties who were wrapped in towels were kneeling on the ground. When Yu Zhong entered the pool, they greeted him carefully, "Welcome, Master." Shiroyuki and Asami also came in and kneeled down respectfully beside Yuzhong. Yuzhong spoke indifferently. "Shiroyuki and Asami can stay. The rest of you may go." "Hi." Masako translated her words, and the rest of the maidservants left. Shiroyuki and Asami came closer to Yuzhong and began to undress him. He slid into the hot water and felt comfortable almost immediately. The accumulated exhaustion in his body began to disappear. Shiroyuki entered the pool and brought water up all over her full breasts, before soaping herself up and pressing against Yuzhong's back to clean him with her body. Asami, on the other hand, soaped Yuzhong's legs and cleaned them thoroughly, before lowering her head to take in his toes into her small mouth. She began to use her tongue in short and sharp motions to clean them. Yuzhong, who had been relaxing with his eyes closed, felt his toes entering a warm and moist area, and he opened his eyes, only to discover Asami servicing him. "Is this a little too much?" He looked at how shamelessly Asami was cleaning his foot and felt his heart tremble. He might have been a dictator back at home and had many slaves to do his bidding, but he had never forced the other party to do something like this. No one would obviously help him clean his toes willingly. However, the exquisite Asami had the looks of a Japanese idol from prior to the apocalypse, and seeing such a beautiful girl lowering herself to service him, he couldn't help but feel a sense of excitement. Yuzhong struggled internally for a while, before deciding to just give in to the pleasure and enjoy her service. Forget it. This isn't China anyway, and it might be their custom to do so. When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Asami had undergone strict training and instruction from Masako. She continued to treat Yuzhong's feet, while using coquettish eyes to shoot furtive glances at Yuzhong. It was truly titillating, and it didn't seem like she was a virgin at all. After thoroughly cleaning Yuzhong's feet, she climbed up onto Yuzhong before grabbing onto his member and taking the initiative to guide it into her. Yuzhong had not let himself go for a long time, and he naturally would not turn away someone who offered herself. He pushed her down beside the pool and began to pound furiously. Shiroyuki continued to use her voluptuous breasts to add to the excitement, while constantly rubbing his back. Yuzhong's constitution was far beyond any normal person. After being done with Asami and leaving her limp on the ground, he reached for Shiroyuki and proceeded to pound her as well. 2 puddles of blood formed at the poolside. Early the next morning, Yuzhong opened his eyes to find the 2 beauties lying on either of his sides. Seeing them lying docilely in his embrace while sleeping, the tension in his shoulders and stress weighing on his mind was somewhat lifted. After coming to Japan, Yuzhong had been on alert at all times, and the pressure wasn't weak. Having released the pin-up stress, he felt much better. After all, while his constitution was strong, stress was not something that could be recovered from if he kept at his activities all day long. Yuzhong wanted to return to China, and he required a broadcast station, an airplane, a pilot, and fuel. Even with all these things, it was not a guaranteed journey. This was a stressful situation for him. Those resources were not easy to obtain, as small factions would not have them, and larger factions would definitely not give them up easily. After all, which faction would just lend such important resources out? Yuzhong had a few helicopters, and every single one of them was precious to him. He wouldn't lend it to anyone. He was clear on how difficult it would be to obtain them. Yuzhong shifted slightly, and Shiroyuki was stirred awake. "Master, you're awake. Master, you're truly energetic. Let me deal with that for you." Her naked body felt the stir of a hot and stiff rod, and her eyes twinkled mischievously before she dove under the covers. Lowering her head, she took Yuzhong's member into her cherry-like lips. Yuzhong was also aroused by this exotic and alluring beauty, and immediately dove her under the covers to enjoy her taste as well. Not long after, Asami also woke up and joined in the fray. After having breakfast, Yuzhong went out with Shoei towards the camps of the 3-clan alliance. By that time, the alliance had already gathered all of their people into a small town, with a total of 1,200 people. After gathering all these people, Shoei spoke, "Sir, these are all of our people." Yu Zhong looked at the 1,200 survivors and asked, "Any of you Chinese?" Every single one of them kept silent. Yu Zhong sighed lightly. He had intended to find some Chinese people he could trust. It seemed that the plan had to be scrapped. Shoei spoke up daringly, "Sir, if you want to find some Chinese people, the Shimizu clan will most likely have them. I remember that there are over 200 Chinese survivors there." "And go back." Yu Zhong turned around and replied. Shoei thus led the 1,200 survivors towards the valley. Weiqi's valley was spacious enough to accommodate over 1,000 people. Even the villa itself could fit a few hundred people with no problems. The moment they returned to the valley, Weiqi came over and reported, "Sir, the Shimazu clan had sent someone to negotiate with you. Would you like to see him?" A tinge of excitement arose in Yu Zhong's heart. "Oh, the Shimazu clan? Bring them in." "Yes." An average-looking man in a suit came walking in, before kneeling respectfully in front of Yu Zhong. He spoke in Chinese. "I'm Tanaka-Shiro from the Shimazu clan. It is an honor to meet you, Yu Zhong-sama. Please forgive us for the offense last night." The matter of Yu Zhong killing 9 Shizu clan members in a matter of seconds had spread throughout the entire clan within a night. Dealing with such an expert was a headache, hence they decided to send a diplomat over. "This is a gift from us. We hope to appease your anger." Tanaka-Shiro clapped his hands as 2 beauties entered from outside. The older girl was about 17 or 18, and she had an alluring figure, with slight makeup on that accentuated her features. The younger girl was about 13 or 14, and her long hair was in a ponytail. She had long, slender limbs, and surprisingly, a well-developed C-cup chest. Her face had large eyes and was pretty. It truly fit the description of a loli. Tanaka-Shiro spoke respectfully. "This is Yoshino Megumi, an idol before the apocalypse. She's 17 this year. This is her sister Yoshino Sayaka, 14 this year. They're both virgins, and we hope that they are to your liking." The sisters were one of the top beauties in the Shimazu clan. They were saved to pull strong experts over to the Shimazu clan. Few people could withstand such a tempting pair of sisters, especially when one of them used to be an idol. Yu Zhong eyed Tanaka-Shiro and spoke mildly. "I'll accept the gifts then. Yesterday's matters has come to a close. What else do you have for me?" Tanaka-Shiro quickly ordered the sisters. "Megumi, Sayaka, go over to your master." The pair of sisters kneeled in front of Yu Zhong and greeted. "Yoshino Megumi, Yoshino Sayaka, greets master." Yu Zhong called out, "Masako, take them away." Masako came out and led the Yoshino sisters away. Tanaka-Shiro saw that Yu Zhong had accepted the 2 sisters and dived straight to the point. "Yu Zhong-sama, our Shimizu clan hopes to form an alliance with you." When Yu Zhong heard his words, he replied without batting an eyelid. "Alliance? It's not impossible. What conditions do you guys have? If they're acceptable, I'll form an alliance with you." Chapter 547, Clash. Chapter 547, Clash. Tanaka-Shiro handed over a photo album and a tablet to Yu Zhong and said, "Yu Zhong-sama, we're willing to give you 1,000 tons of food, 10 beautiful virgins, 1 ton of fuel, 2 off-road vehicles. At the same time, as an expression of goodwill, our Shizu clan leader would like to offer his daughter, Shizu Mina's hand in marriage." These are her pictures and videos. Yu Zhong flipped the album casually and checked out the tablet, and saw what Shizu Mina was like. She was a girl of about 14 to 15, and wore a faded yellow skirt and white cotton top. Although her figure was petite, she had explosive measurements, boasting a C-cup bust, fair skin, and an extraordinary aura. Her looks were graceful and refined, and when she smiled, it was truly charming. Yu Zhong did not skip a beat and continued. "Add another 200 rifles and 20,000 rounds of ammunition." Tanaka-Shiro replied, "Sir, I can only promise an additional 10 rifles and 1,000 rounds. However, we can provide 20 more virgins." As long as you agree to the alliance, we can still send more virgins from today onwards. In this apocalyptic world, firearms were more important and precious compared to virgins. The Shimazu clan was willing to hand over virgins rather than firearms to prevent Yu Zhong's military might from increasing. Yu Zhong had no intentions of expanding in Japan anyway, and he directed the topic to his true aim. All right, I agree to those terms. However, I heard that you guys have a broadcast station. I would like to use it. There shouldn't be a problem, right? Tanaka-Shiro celebrated silently. No problem. The details will have to be discussed at Yama County, though, so we would like to invite you there. The broadcast station is there. Yu Zhong turned to Waichi and Shoei, giving an order. All right, Waichi, Shoei, I'll follow Tanaka-Shiro to Yama County. I leave this place to you guys. Hi. Waichi and Shoei were overjoyed and quickly bowed respectfully. After making his arrangements, Yu Zhong organized 40 enhancers of level 20 and above into 2 groups, handing command of each group to Muto Shin and Ida Kyoko respectively. He brought Shiroyuki and Asami with him on the journey to Yama County. Although the Shinzu clan was known to control Yama County, in actual fact, they had conquered a small town nearby as their base. There were over 500,000 zombies gathered within Yama County, and the Shimazu clan had no way of taking care of them. The town that was the Shimazu's base of operation was called Sakura Town. It used to hold over 30,000 people, hence it wasn't a problem for the 10,000-strong Shimazu clan. Prior to the apocalypse, Sakura Town was known for its hot springs, which had now turned to a huge giant spring. There were 6 tall walls constructed around the town, surrounded by long rivers as well. The entire place had become some sort of fortress. When Yu Zhong and the rest entered the town, they saw many survivors busy constructing defenses. Men, women, the old and young alike, they were all hard at work. In order to face against the impending horde, everyone was working hard. At this time, it was about lunch, and Yu Zhong could see the survivors lining up orderly to get their food. Out of curiosity, Yu Zhong walked over to take a look and discovered that the survivors were having porridge and wild leaf. The Shimazu clan's resources should be thin as well. Yu Zhong eyed the food and the weak-looking survivors and came to a conclusion. The problem of food was a large one that all factions had to face since the start of the apocalypse. Yu Zhong had managed to fight battle after battle because the number of survivors he had was less by over 100 times. With enough resources from prior to the apocalypse, they were able to sustain themselves. Let go of me! Let go of me! Just as Yu Zhong was observing the survivors, he heard Shiroyuki's voice from the side. Yu Zhong frowned and turned, only to see a few youths with dyed hair and strange clothing surrounding Shiroyuki and Asami. The leader was a blonde-hair punk with piercings in his ears and nose. He was currently grabbing Shiroyuki's hands. Muto Shin looked at the youth, and his eyes flashed with a hint of fear, leading his men to face off against the rest of the youths. Yu Zhong's eyes flashed with an icy look, and he strided over. Tanaka-Shiro looked at the youth and called out to him anxiously, Arai-kun, quick, let go of the woman. She's Yu Zhong-sama's woman. The youth was called Arai Fuji, and he was the successor to one of the 3 strong factions with the Shimazu clan, the Arai clan. He had a good background and was an evolver to boot. His level was above 45 and was a strong expert in the Shimazu clan. Due to his strength, he had fearlessly snatched Shiroyuki from Muto Shin's side. Arai Fuji roared with laughter as he made to grab Shiroyuki's breasts. He liked big-breasted women. Yu Zhong, that Chinaman? China dog? What an idiot. He dared to come here. He's practically seeking death. I will kill him later and take in all his women. Such a beauty. Only I have the qualifications to enjoy. Ha ha ha. Just as his hands were about to land on Shiroyuki's breasts, a flash of a blade swung by, and his right hand was removed cleanly from his arm, fresh blood splattering. Arai Fuji could not help but screamed out. Go to hell. Your women will be mine. Yu Zhong's gaze was icy cold as he swung his black tooth blade, and Arai Fuji's head was immediately chopped off. Fresh blood splattered everywhere, dyeing the ground red. Yu Zhong then pointed to the dozen of youths who had followed Arai Fuji and barked, "You fuckers, get down on your knees. Serve me, or you can die." This was Japan. It was not in China, where Yu Zhong was unwilling to kill. However, the moment he acted, nothing could stop him. Muto Shin immediately translated his words into Japanese. "Kill him. Avenge Arai Kuin. Everybody, charge together. Kill him." 6 of the youths immediately shouted and charged at Yu Zhong, activating their abilities. They charged at Yu Zhong with a speed of about 6 to 7 times that of Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong's eyes narrowed, and he brought down the life-taking black tooth blade a few more times, instantly slicing the assaulters in two. Their body parts flopped to the ground in huge showers of blood. "Demon! He's a demon! Demon! He's a demon! Too scary! Don't kill me! Please! Please don't kill me!" The rest of the youths immediately got down on their knees and pleaded for their lives. "Take me to the Arai clan." Yu Zhong pointed at them with the black tooth blade and barked out an order. "Yes, sir. Please come this way." The youth stood up and began to lead Yu Zhong towards the Arai clan. Tanaka-Shiro's face was pale white as he tried to advise Yu Zhong. "Yu Zhong-sama, the Arai family is one of the 3 strongest factions in the Shimazu clan. Please reconsider. Don't be rash. Let me go and discuss this with the leader. Please maintain your calm and do not antagonize the Arai family any longer." Arai Fuji was a natural evolver, and he was just executed in cold blood by Yu Zhong. This was enough grounds for both parties to have an irreconcilable grudge. When he thought up to this point, Tanaka-Shiro felt his head hurt. He had already guessed that Yu Zhong was not to be provoked, but he never expected that Yu Zhong had actually killed the Shimazu people in their own territory. Yu Zhong's gaze was extremely icy as he walked over towards the Arai clan. "Is this the way the Shimazu clan welcomes its guests? I came here out of goodwill to be your ally, and there are people already intending to kill me and steal my women. Am I that easy to bully? Tanaka-Shiro, save your breath. Today, I'll wipe out the Arai clan. Damn it, how did it come to this? I need to report this to Shimazu-sama." Tanaka-Shiro's face fell, and he hurried towards the direction of the main Shimazu house. "It's this place." One of the youths that submitted pointed to a luxurious place and told Yu Zhong, "Charge in. Kill all those who don't kneel to surrender." Yu Zhong shot forward like an arrow and killed the 2 guards with a swing of his black tooth blade before shouting out the vicious order. "Charge in. Kill all those who don't kneel to surrender." Muto Shin followed in with bloodshot eyes. He was extremely clear that he had allowed Shiroyuki to be snatched, which caused Yu Zhong to be extremely unhappy. If he didn't perform better, his position beside Yu Zhong would definitely plummet. Yu Zhong charged into the Arai house and immediately felt a sense of danger. He leaped towards the left. A sniper bullet fired at where Yu Zhong was. If he had been the slightest bit slower, his brain might have been penetrated. Apparently, there was a sniper protecting the family. Their position was not simple. Yu Zhong lifted his head towards the direction of the sniper and shot out a ball of devil flame. It instantly incinerated the entire bunker, turning the sniper inside into ash. "Who are you people? You dare attack the Arai clan?" Motoki Shiro, a level 56 expert, came charging into the villa, leading 20 enhancers of above level 30. He roared furiously when he saw Muto Shin and the rest massacring the people in the Arai clan. Chapter 548, Annihilating the Arai Clan. Chapter 548, Annihilating the Arai Clan. "Kill all of the people." Yu Zhong's eyes blazed, and he activated his shadow steps. His speed instantly soared, exceeding a Type 2 lightning. He disappeared and appeared right in front of Motoki Shiro in a flash, slashing at him. Yu Zhong's speed had vastly surpassed that of a Type 2 lightning. Even some weaker Type 3 mutant beasts might not be able to contend with him. That single slash of his was as fast as lightning, and Motoki Shiro did not even have time to react nor cast his own ability. His head was separated from his body in a shower of blood. Who is this guy? Lord Motoki had been killed in just a second. Is he a demon? Seeing the strongest expert of the Arai clan taken out in one strike, the soldiers present felt a chill in their hearts and lost their will to fight in an instant. Initially, if these 20 level 30 enhancers were to give their all, even if they were ultimately disposed of by Yuzhong, they would still be enough to create some trouble for him. However, in that display of strength, they immediately fell on their knees, without a single shred of their courage or confidence. Clan Lord Sama, things are bad. Yuzhong is killing his way in. Lord Motoki Shiro has been killed by him in a single move. One servant ran into a bedroom and reported anxiously to a middle-aged man. This middle-aged man was precisely the patriarch of the Arai clan, Arai Onigiri. Arai Onigiri's face fell as he threw the 12-year-old girl in his embrace onto the floor, shouting, "What? Motoki Shiro is dead? How is that possible?" Motoki Shiro was the top expert of the Arai clan, and Arai Onigiri just couldn't believe that he would be killed by someone else. "He's dead, you're next." Yuzhong stepped in at this moment. His gaze traveled from Arai Onigiri to the little girl beside him, whose body was riddled with bite marks and eyes were devoid of emotions. Yuzhong's killing intent intensified. Arai Onigiri frowned and asked Yuzhong without his usual overbearing tone, "You must be Yuzhong. I'm Arai Onigiri of the Arai clan. This is the first time we've met. We have no grudge. Why have you suddenly charged in to kill my clan members? This is the Shimazu territory. Do you think you'll get away with this?" Yuzhong stepped forward and his blade swung down, causing the head of Arai Onigiri to soar through the air. A hot shower of blood sprayed everywhere, dyeing the room red. Yuzhong looked at the headless corpse and spat coldly. "You talk too much. Today, I'm using your head to establish my position. Don't kill me. I'll let you do what you want. Please don't hit me. Don't hit me. I'm a dog. I'm a bitch. Rarf. Rarf. Rarf." The little girl saw Arai Onigiri's corpse, and fear flashed in her eyes. She crawled towards Yuzhong's feet like a dog and pleaded while barking. Arai Onigiri was also a pervert and loved to torment young girls. It seemed that this young girl was one of his victims. Yuzhong eyed the little girl, noticing that her eyes were large and her skin was fair. Her body was frail and small, and her limbs looked like they would break at any moment. Her features were delicate and her bust was already well developed, looking like a pair of buns. She was a pretty lowly. Yuzhong looked at the trembling girl and frowned before using Japanese. "Stand up." "Hi." The girl got up shakingly, looking at Yuzhong with fear. "Put on some clothes and come with me." Yuzhong threw her a set of clothes before turning around to leave the room. The girl received the clothes and stood silently behind Yuzhong. Yuzhong asked, "What's your name?" The Japanese lowly began to speak. "I'm Ogura Raya. 12 this year. 5 days ago, my mother and I were captured by Arai Onigiri. After 5 days of training, I was sent today to service Arai Onigiri-sama. I haven't been here long and wasn't humiliated yet by Arai Onigiri-sama before you appeared, sir. Where's your mother?" Ogura Raya's face turned pale, and her expression instantly became depressed as tears welled up in her eyes. "She's already dead." Ogura Raya's mother had provoked Arai Onigiri, who had ordered for her to be tortured to death. Little Raya had seen her mother's death with her own eyes. That was why she had lost all spirit and was forced to become like a dog for Arai Onigiri. As Japan was well known for its AV, there were many positions of instructors. In fact, these instructors were similar to the ancient China's mamasan or pimp. It was just that with the modernization of society, such roles were much lesser now. Yuzhong took the information in and spoke mildly. "The dead are already dead. The living has to continue living. Move on." After all, he had seen his fair share of stories. Raya's story was just one of too many. Raya wiped her eyes and looked at Yuzhong, speaking innocently. "Hi, I understand. Today, you saved me. From today on, Ogura Raya is Sir's slave and bitch. Rhea had experienced the cruel nature of the apocalyptic world. She knew that only by relying on an expert would one be able to live on. After all, living like a slave of an expert was much better than living like an ordinary survivor. All right, Yuzhong could tell what Rhea was thinking, but he didn't reject her. In this world, even if he did not allow her to be by his side, she would rely on others. Those without strength would have to live like that. After Motoki Shiro and Arai Onigiri had been slaughtered by Yuzhong, the entire Arai family collapsed. There were many experts and elite soldiers, but the moment Muto Shin raised the decapitated heads of their leaders, the rest of the elites immediately surrendered. There were a few stubborn ones, so Yuzhong made short work of them. Not long after, the Arai clan settled down. However, there were numerous corpses lying about, and fresh blood dyed every part of this lavish dwelling. Many of the Arai clan members had been tied up as captives and were kneeling on the ground. Outside the Arai clan, an entire armed battalion, together with 36 armored vehicles, 12 tanks, and 12 assault helicopters had surrounded the premise. This was the trump card of the Shimizu clan. It was a modern army. The Shimizu clan had managed to bring the town under its control and established itself as a major power because of their equipment. Just their elite battalion alone was enough to deal with many enhancers. Prior to the apocalypse, although Japan was not allowed to have aircraft carriers or nuclear weapons, their self-defense forces were pretty well equipped. The troops had surrounded the Arai clan's premises but did not charge in. Instead, they were facing off against Muto Shin's forces. Right at this time, Yuzhong walked out of the villa, and his cold voice rang out. "What's the meaning of this? You want to start a war with me?" The moment the soldiers saw Yuzhong, every one of them felt a chill. They could not help but raise their weapons against him. Their intuition told them that this man was dangerous. Yuzhong's eyes narrowed, and he leaped forward, his killing intent billowing towards the sky. "You guys dare to raise your weapons against me. Do you want to force me? Good. Let me show you what a massacre is." The dozen of elite soldiers closest to him was immediately affected by Yuzhong's powerful killing intent and involuntarily stepped back. Their faces were pale. Right at this time, Tanaka Shiro came running out full of perspiration as he shouted, "Stop! Yuzhong-sama, we don't mean that. Please calm down." He was extremely clear about Yuzhong's terrifying temper. The experts in the Arai clan were numerous, but had been easily controlled by him the moment he charged in. Even Motoki Shiro had been sliced in one move. Such an expert was sure to have numerous trump cards. Even if in the unlikely scenario that the Shimazu clan brings him down, they would have to suffer incredible losses as well. If such a thing were to happen, Tanaka Shiro knew that the Shimizu head would not let him off. As for the deployment of the elite forces, it was to show their might. The Shimizu clan had no intention of actually attacking Yuzhong. "Lower your weapons," Tanaka Shiro shouted out. The soldiers immediately lowered their weapons. "Oomph." Yuzhong scoffed coldly and kept his black-toothed blade back on his back. He had no intention of fighting to the death with the Shimizu clan anyway. After all, if both sides were to really fight, other than Yuzhong, the rest would definitely die. Tanaka Shiro walked towards Yuzhong and spoke respectfully. "Yuzhong-sama, the clan leader would like to see you. Please follow me." Seeing for oneself is better than hearing from 100 others. Tanaka Shiro had finally seen how terrifying Yuzhong was, and he became even more respectful. The Japanese were a proud race, but they knew when to yield. In the case of World War II, the Japanese had only surrendered after the two bombs had devastated a huge part of their nation. They had then become docile. Of course, if America became weak, then it would be a different story. The Shimizu clan was located at a deep part of Sakura Town, in a huge but ancient-looking estate. Many of the rich and powerful liked to live in large and spacious but traditional buildings. Of course, in places like Tokyo, where land was scarce, it was harder to have such luxury. However, such building architecture and design would be common in the smaller towns. Under Tanaka Shiro's guidance, Yu Zhong and Kyoko walked through a number of corridors and passages before arriving at the center of the mansion. Chapter 549, Alliance. Chapter 549, Alliance. Inside a large hall sat an old but fit man who was about 56 years old. He had a short buzz cut and was wearing a kimono. Beside the old man, there was a beautiful young lady in a kimono, kneeling and grinding tea leaves. The old man looked at Yu Zhong and had a slight smile. "I'm Shimizu Yuji. Yu Zhong, I'm very pleased to meet you here. Please, sit. How do you do?" Yu Zhong eyed this leader of the Shimizu clan and sat down comfortably. He was not used to the Japanese style of kneeling. "This is for you." The young beauty served cups of tea to both Yu Zhong and Kyoko. "Thank you." Yu Zhong received the cup of tea and placed it on the side without drinking it. He might be strong, but he wasn't entirely impervious to poison. There were all sorts of mutated plants in the apocalypse, and he would die if he was poisoned as well. Shimizu Yuji pointed at the young girl and said, "This is my daughter, Shimizu Mina. Mina, go greet your husband." Mina came in front of Yu Zhong and bowed elegantly before speaking in a graceful manner. "Yu Zhong-sama, this miss is lacking in many areas. I seek your guidance in the future." "Good. Get up." He nodded slightly at Shimizu Mina before turning to face Shimizu Yuji. "Shimizu clan head, is there something important since you call me here?" Shimizu Mina adjusted her position slightly, kneeling beside Yu Zhong like she was already his wife. Since she had been brought up with certain etiquettes, she was clear on what she had to do. Shimizu Yuji looked at Yu Zhong and smiled with affection. "You still call me the Shimizu clan head? Isn't father-in-law better?" Yu Zhong chuckled. "Shimizu clan head, I reckon that it's only right to call you that after we've gone through with the rites." Even if it was a political marriage, getting Yu Zhong to suddenly call a stranger his father-in-law was strange. Shimizu Fuji looked at Yu Zhong, and his smile slowly receded, only to be replaced by a serious look. "That is acceptable. However, even if there was a reason for your actions, wiping out the Arai clan was too much." Yu Zhong did not miss a beat and asked, "Well, things happen that way, Shimizu clan head. What do you intend to do?" Shimizu Fuji's face was full of smiles again as he suggested, "The Arai clan was an important strength in our Shimizu clan. The zombies in Yama County will invade soon. Having lost the Arai clan is equivalent to losing a huge part of our strength. Yu Zhong, I hope that you can bring your men to help protect this town. If you can promise me this, the past matters will be treated as a misunderstanding." Since the Arai clan was wiped out by Yu Zhong, Shimizu Fuji was naturally filled with anger. However, as the clan lord, he could not just allow his anger to cloud his judgment. If they could get the assistance of Yu Zhong, then their battle prowess would increase to a terrifying level. As long as they could deal with this threat, they would be able to expand further in the future. In the face of such a critical situation, Shimizu Fuji was unwilling to make an enemy out of Yu Zhong, whose strength was truly unfathomable. Yu Zhong's eyes narrowed, and he stated his conditions. "Sure, but I want all of the Chinese survivors in the Shimizu clan." After coming to Japan, although Yu Zhong had recruited Shin and Wai Chi, they were not trustworthy yet. Yu Zhong had no means of seeing through the thoughts of a person, but he was extremely clear. The Japanese were only submissive to him because of his strength. If something were to go wrong, they would definitely betray him at the first moment. This was why he wanted to have the Chinese survivors in the Shimizu clan. There was a strange glint in Shimizu Fuji's eyes as he spoke. "The Chinese survivors? Sure, I can give them all to you. Mina, go lead him to the Chinese survivors." Shimizu Mina stood up and brought a whiff of fragrance as she revealed a beautiful smile to Yu Zhong. "Yes, Otis-sama, Otto-sama, please come with me. Ota equals father. Otto equals husband." Yu Zhong returned to Shimizu Mina's smile and followed the beautiful lady out. The moment they left the room, Shimizu Fuji's expression sunk as the wrinkles on his face became even more pronounced. His eyes held a dangerous and grim look. After a while, he regained his composure and spoke to a shadow in the corner. "Yamada, what do you think?" From the corner, a person wrapped tightly in black stepped out. Only his eyes were visible. A ninja from the legends stepped out and appeared beside Shimizu Fuji. This ninja-like person was the trump card and the strongest assassin of the Shimizu clan, Yamada Ikiyama. His level was above 58, and he was an agility-based evolver. Yamada Ikiyama was the strongest expert of the Shimizu clan, and he had contributed greatly to them. He spoke in a cold and harsh tone. "Sir, he's extremely strong. Furthermore, he was vigilant at all times. If we were to clash, I would only be able to last 5 minutes. If it were an assassination, I only have 30% confidence of succeeding." "Only 30? Too little." Shimizu Fuji frowned. He disliked the fact that there was a foreigner with immense strength running amok. Yamada Ikiyama's evaluation of Yuzhong was extremely high. This is also under the assumption that he's at his least cautious state. Only then will there be a 30% chance. If he were to maintain his vigilance, I wouldn't even be able to get within 20 m of him. Yamada Ikiyama had assassinated numerous experts. He had killed his fair share of mutant beasts and high-level zombies. That was how he was capable of comprehending the pressure Yuzhong gave him. It was an intuition molded by experiencing countless battles. Shimizu Fuji waved his hands. "Dismissed." "Hi." Yamada Ikiyama swiftly disappeared into the shadows again. Shimizu Fuji pressed a button by his side, and a beautiful Japanese woman appeared, kneeling by his side. Shimizu Fuji eyed the beauty and ordered, "Nariko, convey my orders. Tell everybody of the Shimizu clan to not offend this Yuzhong. Try to become friends with him." This beautiful Japanese lady was called Iwa Nariko, and she was one of the beautiful women kept by Shimizu Fuji after the apocalypse. She was dignified and well-versed in customs, and was one of the overseeing members of the Shimizu clan. "Hi." Iwa Nariko bowed respectfully and left. "Since we can't afford to make him an enemy, we can only try to be friends." After Nariko left, Shimizu Fuji's sullen voice resounded softly in the room. Inside a warehouse that was converted into a prison, 30 Japanese were currently keeping guard over the prisoners. "Crawl faster. Crawl faster. Fuck. Bitch number 1, you better fucking crawl faster. Otherwise, you can forget about eating." Amidst the cruel laughter of the Japanese, 6 women with scars all over their bodies were crawling on the ground, scrambling to reach a white line on the ground. All around the prison, there were over 200 Chinese survivors with wooden expressions. This was one of the program's Horse Run that pit the women survivors against one another in a race. The last 2 contestants would usually be fed dirty water and scarce dog food, and the front 4 would be fed normal water and scarce dog food. As the Japanese laughed, one of the naked women rushed past the finishing line and fell to the ground. As she gasped for air, she croaked out in Japanese, "Water! Food!" One of the Japanese kicked out at the woman with a savage glint before taking off his pants and peeing on her face. "Stinking bitch! Why'd you crawl so fast? You caused me to lose a cigarette. Since you want water, this is for you. Open up. Drink it all." The Chinese woman, whose looks were considered decent, opened her mouth numbly, accepting the revolting pee. The Japanese man roared out in laughter. "Haha, look, everybody, this woman actually drinks pee. The Chinese are truly wretched. What a bunch of sluts. They're just like dogs. No, they're worse than dogs. Ha!" The rest of the Japanese laughed out as well. Tormenting the women was their source of entertainment. After all, many would go insane from the apocalypse. There was a woman amongst the survivors who was listening to the surrounding laughter. Her name was Jean Lee. She was a Shanghai student who was enamored with the Japanese culture. She always felt that the Japanese were better than the Chinese and had intended to marry a Japanese. After she graduated, she moved over to Japan in the hopes of living her dreams. However, the Japanese man that Jean Lee was seeing soon swindled her out of her money, selling her to the adult industry. Jean Lee had no friends nor family to rely on and was reduced to a wretched state. After the apocalypse set in, While the lands were filled with zombies, she relied on selling her body to rely on experts. She managed to survive like that before ending up in the Shimizu clan as a toy. 5 Japanese went into the cell and took off their clothes before proceeding to rape some of the women. "Get the hell over here." One of the soldiers walked through the survivors, and his eyes suddenly lit up as he grabbed a young girl who was about 11 to 12 years old. The child's face was full of dirt and grime. Her hair was messy, and there was even a putrid smell on her. "Let go of my child!" A skinny male survivor screamed out as he shoved the soldier away. Chapter 550, Rascal. Chapter 550, Rascal. "Baka, go to hell." The Japanese soldier was enraged and used the butt of his rifle to smash the stomach of the skinny survivor, causing him to kneel down with his body bent over in pain. "Baka equals idiot. Daddy!" The child who was grabbed immediately shouted shrillingly. "Go to hell." The Japanese soldier laughed cruelly and stabbed at the male survivor with his rifle, penetrating his abdomen and stabbing through the intestines. The little child immediately wailed with bloodshot eyes. Her voice was heart-wrenching. "Daddy! Daddy! Daddy! No!" The man whose intestines were slashed lifted his head to look at his child, reaching out as if he wanted to grab her. He loved his child very much and wanted to look at her once more before he died. "Daddy! Daddy! Daddy!" The kid cried out as she struggled madly like an injured beast. Her screams were pitiful and caused one's heart to clench in sorrow. The 200 Chinese survivors lowered their heads silently, not bearing to watch this scene. The soldiers were cruel, and if they were to speak up, they would definitely be killed. In this apocalypse, human lives were treated like ants. In Japan, the Chinese led lives that were wretched. There was a lot of right-wing movement prior to the apocalypse, and there were many anti-Chinese sentiments. Many wished that they could rid their nation of the Chinese. However, since there were societal norms and measures in place, no one could just brazenly indulge in their exclusion or xenophobic behavior. However, after the apocalypse happened, the Chinese in Japan became the lowest life forms. Many of the Japanese were already cruel enough to their own people, and it was needless to speak of the fate of the Chinese that they hated. "Chinese dog die." The Japanese soldier watched the struggling little kid and licked his lips somewhat excitedly, before pointing his rifle at the middle-aged Chinese man's head and pulling the trigger. Following the loud sound of gunfire, a bullet hole appeared in between the brows of the man. His eyes lost the light of life, and he crumpled to the floor. His vacant eyes were still staring in the direction of the child. "Daddy!" The child watched the cruel death of her father and wailed out in a heartbreaking scream, her eyes losing all will as she stopped struggling as well. "Ah!" The Japanese soldier immediately threw the rifle in his hand to one side and reached to tear the clothes off the kid. Just as his hands were about to come in contact with the child, there was a gunshot, and the right hand of the Japanese soldier was immediately blasted. The soldier screamed at the sight of his missing right hand with immense agony. Right as the gunshot fired, the rest of the Japanese soldiers who were raping the other women immediately became alarmed and turned their heads towards the source of the gunshot. At the entrance, Yu Zhong walked in with a frosty expression. Yu Zhong looked at the soldiers who were pointing at him with their rifles, his eyes blazing with a strong, killing intent. "Put down your weapons, or die." Shizumina walked out from behind Yu Zhong and swiftly barked out in Japanese. "I'm the Shimizu clan's princess, Shizumina. I'm ordering you all to put down your weapons. This person here is my fiancé and your future leader. Pointing your weapon at him is a huge crime." Although she looked demure and harmless, in truth, she was an extremely capable person. If she wasn't a girl, Shimizu Fuji would have definitely passed the reins of the family to her. She understood that the rage of Yu Zhong would cost the lives of all of the Japanese soldiers here. Under her orders, the Japanese soldiers hesitated a while before lowering their weapons. They did not dare to refute the orders of the princess of the clan. "Baka, go to hell." The soldier who was injured by Yu Zhong charged at him due to his blind rage. Yu Zhong raised his right hand and grabbed the face of the Japanese soldier and threw him down like a broken rag doll. He then stepped on the back of the soldier, exerting a mountain-like pressure. He looked at the scrawny kid and asked coldly, "Rascal, do you want to avenge your father?" The little kid understood vengeance, and the originally soulless eyes of her stirred as she immediately knelt in front of Yu Zhong and shouted in Chinese, I want revenge. I want revenge. Uncle, please help me." Yu Zhong handed a .54 pistol to her and said, "As long as you swear fealty, this gun is yours. Take it and fire at this scum here. Your wish will be fulfilled." The kid received the gun and immediately pointed it at the Japanese soldier. "Baka, what do you think you're doing?" The rest of the soldiers shouted out in alarm and raised their guns, not willing to see their comrade being killed. Yu Zhong swiftly raised his hand and fired consecutively, as a few rounds found their target in the soldiers' heads. A number of the Japanese soldiers immediately fell down dead, with bullet holes in their heads. Shimazumina witnessed dozens of the soldiers dying at Yu Zhong's hands, and her face fell, immediately kneeling in front of Yu Zhong and pleaded, "Stop! Oto-sama, please calm down. Please calm down." Every death signified a decrease in the Shimazu clan strength. Furthermore, Shimazumina did not want to see any more conflict between this terrifying Chinese man and her subordinates. Yu Zhong's action of killing those Japanese soldiers in a split second shocked the rest of the soldiers, as they eyed him with renewed fear and horror, not daring to make any movements. Seeing them all recoil in shock, Yu Zhong stopped, and his gaze landed on the kid. "Beast, die!" The kid screamed at the Japanese soldier with rage and squeezed the trigger while gritting her teeth. Following the gunshot, a bullet hole appeared in the head of the Japanese soldier. The kid was also injured by the recoil of the gun, falling down onto the floor. However, she still held onto the pistol tightly and stubbornly, as her eyes filled with a savage bloodlust. At the next instant, the kid turned pale and vomited. After throwing up some of her stomach acids, she crumpled onto the floor with her body flushing red. "Fever." Yu Zhong shot forwards and felt her forehead, feeling a burning temperature. Yu Zhong carried the smelly and dirty child and handed her to Kyoko. "Kyoko, go take this rascal back and clean her up, then arrange for her to rest. Give her some medicine as well." "Yes." Kyoko hugged the child and left. After settling the issue of the kid, Yu Zhong turned to face the other 200 survivors in the prison. There were about 50 men, while the rest consisted of women and children. In this apocalypse, as foreigners, men were more likely killed, and as long as the women were not too ugly, they would be caught and used as tools. Yu Zhong eyed them with a complicated gaze, saying, "I'm Yu Zhong, and I'm from China. If you're willing to swear loyalty to me, follow me. As long as you're loyal, I will feed you and give you your dignity. You will live your lives with pride. Those who are willing, stand on my left. Those who aren't, you can stay where you are or stand to my right. I'm giving you 20 seconds. 20. Hearing his words, the 200 survivors glanced at the Japanese soldiers with fear, not daring to move immediately. They feared that it was a trap and that they would fall into the tiger's mouth upon leaving the wolf's den. Yu Zhong saw this, and his heart sank. He never imagined for them to be so weak-willed. He had come to rescue them, and these bastards were still hesitating. When he reached 5, one man gritted his teeth and hurriedly stood on Yu Zhong's left. The man's action stirred the rest, as a number of the survivors stood up and immediately went over. After his countdown, Yu Zhong threw the rest of the survivors who stayed, including Jean Li, a complex but grim look. There were about 60 survivors who stayed still or stood on his right. "Let's go." Yu Zhong eyed them coldly, before turning around to leave. Shimazumina walked by his side and pointed at those who stayed, asking, "What do we do with them?" "Deal with them however you like. They have nothing to do with me." His eyes flashed with a cold and ruthless look. Since they were willing to stay as slaves and dogs, he didn't want to force them to do anything else. Jean Li looked at those who were leaving, and her shrill voice rang out. Don't trust him. That Chinese is lying to you. Only the Japanese are good people. The Japanese are better than the Chinese. Chapter 551, 5 Evolvers. Chapter 551, 5 Evolvers. The Japanese were better than the Chinese. This thought had long since become the only truth to Jean Li. If this belief had crumbled, she initially wouldn't have sold her body to work in Japan. All of her actions leading up to her marriage with the Japanese would also have been meaningless. Even if she became just a piece of meat to be toyed with, she would hang on to that motto. Furthermore, she hoped that the Japanese soldiers would treat her better if she stood up for them. At the very least, they might give her clean water and bread. Baka, shut up. Stupid bitch. Damn piece of meat. Who allowed you to speak? One Japanese soldier immediately lashed out viciously, smacking Jean Li in her mouth. He was afraid that her words might anger that killing devil and hurried to shut her up. Jean Li rolled onto the ground, with a few of her teeth knocked out. After being treated mercilessly, her belief and support were decimated and crumbled instantly. She finally lost her mind and turned into a maniac, muttering, Japanese superior, I want to marry a Japanese. Save me. Yu Zhong. I'm willing to follow you. I'm willing to swear loyalty. Save me. Those who were hesitating previously looked at Jean Li in her wretched state, and a chill came over their hearts. They hurried to beg for Yu Zhong to take them in. Yu Zhong looked at them indifferently as he left a statement. I only give one chance. Since you guys didn't cherish it, don't blame me. Let's go. Yu Zhong turned around, and together with Shimazumina, they led the survivors out. The survivors followed closely in fear of being abandoned. In Japan, they only have this one guy to count on. Haha, get down, raise your asses. The moment Yu Zhong and the rest left, the remaining Japanese soldiers immediately went straight to torturing the survivors that were left behind. They wanted to vent their frustration, fear, and anger of the deaths of their comrades on these damn Chinese people. Only by doing so would they feel like they have regained some form of control over their lives. Shimazumina was very efficient and quickly arranged accommodations for Yu Zhong and the other survivors. She even got people to send clean water and bread to the survivors. As the survivors bit into their food and drank their water, every single one of them shed tears. It was just simple bread and water, but to them, it was the greatest meal they've ever had. After all, they had been at the mercy of the Japanese soldiers in the prison and were even forced to consume urine and expired dog food. Yu Zhong asked the first man who joined him, What's your name? What's your occupation before the apocalypse? The guy was an average-looking male, with a knowledgeable look and scholarly aura. He heard Yu Zhong's question and immediately replied, Sir, I'm called Yuan Tiangang. I used to be a senior engineer in the field of optoelectronics. Optoelectronics, branch of technology concerned with the combined use of electronics and light. A senior engineer in optoelectronics? Yu Zhong's eyebrows arched slightly. This was a rare talent. If he had this man on board his research team in Guaning, the development of the laser gun technology would likely be propelled. Yu Zhong continued. Amongst the rest of them, are there any men like you? Yuan Tiangang pondered for a moment before shaking his head. Not that I know of. There should only be me. Yu Zhong then spoke. I will assign someone to train you guys in combat. From now on, no matter what any of you were, that is in the past. Work hard toward becoming a soldier now. Go tell the rest, and let them make their mental preparations. Yuan Tiangang replied with respect, feeling a chill in his heart. Yes. Yuan Tiangang was extremely clear that in this current society, scientists could not be compared with farmers. To a weak faction, a scientist was not as useful as a soldier. After hesitating for a while, Yuan Tiangang approached Yu Zhong. Sir, there's something else. Speak. He was somewhat uncomfortable as he continued. Among the people that were captured by the Shinju clan, there's an expert in the field of kinetics and an expert in the study of composite armor. They were both taken by the Shimizu clan. I'm not sure if this news will be of any use to you. Kinetics. Composite armor. Did the Shimizu obtain some technological blueprint? Yu Zhong came to a conjecture when he heard those words. Yu Zhong chuckled lightly and handed a vial of evolving liquid to Yuan Tiangang. Good. This news was vital to me. I appreciate the loyalty, and I will definitely not disappoint those who are loyal. This is an evolving liquid. After consumption, you will become a powerful evolver. Many thanks, sir. I will definitely serve you with my life. Yuan Tiangang knew that Yu Zhong didn't need to resort to any tricks to kill him. Upon receiving the liquid, he saluted Yu Zhong before dumping the contents of the vial into his mouth. The moment the liquid entered his body, he fell into a feverish state. Kyoko, this is an evolving liquid. Drink it and you'll become an evolver. Yu Zhong beckoned for Kyoko and handed her a vial as well. Ida Kyoko received it and held it firmly, bowing once more to Yu Zhong before saying, "Thank you for your gift, master." In this apocalypse, immense strength was everything. Kyoko knew the value and preciousness of the evolving liquid in her hands. If she brought this out to sell, it would be enough to exchange for an entire city. Evolvers were, after all, in a different league compared to enhancers. After gifting Kyoko with the evolving liquid, Yu Zhong also gave 2 others to Shirayuki and Asami, allowing them to also evolve. Yu Zhong lacked powerful subordinates now, and there were only 500 vials on his hand. However, in one night, he gained 5 more evolvers at hand. Their loyalty was the only big question now. Yu Zhong was unwilling to squander this precious liquid on Japanese men. This was because he found it hard to trust them. Inside a room in the Arai clan, there were 2 pretty maids in kimonos waiting to serve. The moment Yu Zhong stepped into the room, he saw a number of beautiful lolas of ages 9 to 15 kneeling and speaking in unison. "Welcome home, master." There were also a few other terms used such as brother, uncle, daddy, and big brother. These lolas were all kept by Arai Onigiri as play toys. They were all beautiful, and amongst them, there were 2 of his biological daughters. They had become Yu Zhong's spoils of war as well. Ogura wore a white shirt and yellow skirt, and a pair of white and pink shoes. She ran up to Yu Zhong and kneeled. "Master, you're back. Welcome home." Yu Zhong eyed the lolas as his brows arched. "Dismiss them." Ogura smiled sweetly at him before turning around and ordering the rest with a wooden expression. "Yes, all of you are dismissed." Under her orders, the rest trudged out somewhat unwillingly. Although they were young, they knew the cruelty of the current world. Without someone strong to rely on, their fates will most likely become unbearable. Yu Zhong walked over to the bed and saw a short-haired girl with beautiful features and fair skin lying on the bed. Yu Zhong frowned. "She's a girl?" Ogura came up and replied, "Yes, she's a little girl." The girl struggled a while before she opened her eyes, somewhat disoriented. She then looked at Yu Zhong. Yu Zhong's sensitive perception could tell that the girl was different. His gaze narrowed and he asked, "I'm Yu Zhong. What's your name? Have you evolved? What's the skill you've obtained?" "My name is Feng Yubing. I've evolved, and I am a spirit-based evolver. My skill is ice manipulation." Feng Yubing looked at this man who helped her exact revenge over her father's murder and stretched out her hands to exhibit her ability. Yu Zhong looked at Feng Yubing with an excited look. "Good. Yubing, from now on, you're my subordinate. I will train you up to become a proper soldier. You must know that in this world, those without strength will be trampled on. Only by obtaining strength would you be able to protect the ones you love and the things you treasure." Feng Yubing was a natural evolver, and her natural ability was stronger than the ones that used the evolving liquid. After all, natural evolvers were favored by the heavens, and as long as they undergo proper training, they would become elite soldiers. Feng Yubing looked at Yu Zhong and nodded her head silently. Her life was saved by this man, and her vengeance was made possible by him as well. She had no other wish in this life except to repay this man. In addition to Feng Yubing, Yuan Tiangang, Kyoko, Shirayuki, and Asami also became evolvers. They manifested abilities alongside their evolution. Yuan Tiangang became a spirit-based evolver, and his skill was mechanical manipulation specialization, allowing him control over any machines. Kyoko was an agility-based evolver with a second-order agility solidification. Shirayuki and Asami were both agility-based evolvers as well, with both of them awakening the ordinary high-speed movement ability. Chapter 552, Training. Chapter 552, Training. Inside a government office in Guining City, Wei Ning was summoned all the important members to announce some news. Hearing the news, everyone heaved a sigh of relief. Yu Zhong was still their leader, and the only one they could place their trust and hopes on. If he were to die, then all that he had built up would instantly crumble. When they heard that we was alive and well, all those with some ambitions quickly killed off their insidious thoughts. Yao Yao had an anxious expression as she asked, "How is Sis Qing Wu?" To Yao Yao, Yu Zhong was important, but Ji Qing Wu held a higher position in her heart. In order to save her, Ji Qing Wu had nearly sacrificed her own life. According to Liger's report, Ji Qing Wu had suffered life-threatening injuries and is currently recuperating by his side. In order to recover, she would need another 4 months' time. Wei Ningguo was after all a good soul, and due to his loyalty to Yu Zhong, he did not dare offend his women. Although Yao Yao was young, she was beautiful and a natural evolver to boot. She was also one of the earliest comrades of Yu Zhong, and was already the vice-captain of the 1st Elite Battalion of Longhai City. He could not afford to brush her off. The apocalypse had shattered all forms of norms of the past society. As long as one had the wisdom and strength, even a kid could become a leader or a high-ranking officer. Yao Yao looked at Wei Ningguo and immediately said, "I want to go to Yama County." "Wei Ningguo, I want a Thunder Fighter to go there." Yao Yao's strength caused her to be more direct when handling matters, and she seldom beat around the bush. Even if Wei Ningguo was the highest authority in Guining, she was as blunt as ever. Wei Ningguo immediately agreed to her request. "Sure, I'll arrange for 4 of the Thunder Fighters to accompany you to Japan." Yu Zhong had obtained the 12 Thunder Fighters from the Kingdom of God, but he lacked the necessary manpower to drive them all. In the entire Guangxi region, there was only maybe 4 decent pilots. They were all enhancers with the vehicle driving specialization skill. These was why they could operate the mechanical beasts. Hui looked towards Wei Ningguo expectantly and asked, "What instructions did boss have for us?" After the huge expenditure of ammunition, they had stopped all forms of fightings. There were only small-scale assaults on the surrounding zombie groups around. This caused Hu Yi, Zhang Shui Wang, and Zheng Ming, he is the commanders of their respective battalions, to be bored. Only through fighting would military men show their might. They hoped for a huge fight to raise their merits. Wei Ningguo replied softly, "Leader told us to rest for 1 more month. After the ammunition is replenished, we will focus our attention northeast to clear a way between Longhai City in the Hunan region and Guining City. Specific tactics to be decided by the army." Although Guangxi still faced the threat of over 1 million zombies, Yu Zhong's aim was to clear the northeast region. The moment they established the connection, Yu Zhong's faction would leap in strength, making using of the connecting rails and combining into a complete base. Now, the Hunan and Guangxi regions were still separated. By connecting them, the research and talents could be shared. Yes, not long after the meeting concluded, for Thunder Fighters lifted off from the underground city, and in a flash of light, flew towards the direction of Japan. Within the 4 Thunder Fighters, there were 100 enhancers, each of them at least level 40. At the same time, there were 20 evolvers among them as well. They were all elite and loyal soldiers that Yu Zhong had trained specially. This was a terrifying strength. With the 4 Thunder Fighters and the 100 fully equipped enhancers, could raise an entire faction of 10,000 people to the ground. Yu Zhong had made use of the broadcast station to establish a radio communications back home and finally heaved a sigh of relief. He did not, however, squander his time on enjoying himself with the women. Instead, he got to work training the Chinese soldiers as well as the new evolvers by his side. Early the next morning, inside the accommodations, an alarm blared out incessantly. The moment the alarm sounded, a number of men and women rushed out from their rooms neatly within 20 seconds. Each of them carried large bags and swiftly gathered at the parade square. Ida Kyoko, Sakura Shiryuki, Amano Asami, Yuan Tiangang, Mudo Shin, Ogura and Fengyu Bing stood amongst the soldiers and looked at Yu Zhong quietly. Yu Zhong stared at everyone present and ordered loudly, "Carry your equipment. Let's move out." After that, he hoisted a 100 kilograms bag onto his bag and started to run out. The rest hoisted their bags and followed quickly. This was the morning run of 10 kilometers in the wild. If it was before the apocalypse, not many would be able to withstand such an intense workout. However, because of the threat of death, everyone managed to tap into their potential and force themselves to the limit. Furthermore, most importantly, after training every day, he would allow them all to consume Type 3 mutant beast meat, strengthening their bodies. After 15 days of rigorous training, every single one of the survivors had been pushed to the brink of death and back, yet their physique had swiftly soared, reaching levels that exceeded even special forces of before the apocalypse. This was possible only because of the intense training and the miraculous Type 3 mutant beast meat. Ogura was different from the other Lolas. She could withstand the tough training. She did not detest the training unlike other women, and instead volunteered to take part. She knew that with just her strength alone, it was not enough to control her own destiny. Furthermore, Yu Zhong had given her the chance. Shiroyuki and Asami could not compare to Rhea. They were after all trained to be more feminine and to serve, if it wasn't for the fact that they had become evolvers, and Yu Zhong's forceful request, they would not want to be part of the hellish training. After the morning run, Yu Zhong would then lead the Chinese to hunt zombies. Yuan Tiangang, Mudo Shin, Fengyu Bing, Ida Kyoko were appointed as captains, and they used weapons to weaken the zombies, allowing the other Chinese survivors to become enhancers. Yu Zhong had a number of equipment that he obtained from the corpses of the Takama-ga-hara soldiers from the Liger hunt, and handed them to his men. Under such training and enhancement, the entire group of about 100 survivors rose to become enhancers of above level 15. Amongst them, Kyoko, Yuan Yang, Shiryuki, Fengyu Bing, Asami, and Rhea all become level 30. These 6 could level up faster was because Yu Zhong found a territory of a 100 Type 2 evolved zombies, allowing them to train against them. That was why they could level up so quickly. Only with resources and the carry of an expert, a faction could easily make use of any group of high-level zombies to groom an enhancer of above level 30. Training these people to be level 30 was easy for Yu Zhong. However, the level 40, 50, and even 60 mark were extremely difficult. After all, the higher one went, the more difficult it was to level. This was why Takama-ga-hara could only deploy a group of level 30 enhancers as a hunting team. Inside a small town, Kyoko led a number of soldiers in killing zombies. Yu Zhong was waiting quietly outside. The Type 3 zombies inside had been annihilated by him, and the ordinary zombies were simply not a match for the 5 evolvers and their elite soldiers. One soldier suddenly ran up to Yu Zhong. "Leader, there's movement from the zombie horde." "What? The zombie horde is moving?" Yu Zhong's expression turned when he heard it, and he ordered, "Convey my orders. Everyone is to return and prepare to retreat." "Yes." The soldier quickly rushed off. At this time, propeller and motor sounds rang in the distance, as a number of thunderfighters rushed by overhead in the skies. "Those are thunderfighters. There are 12 of them. These must be an assault team of the Kingdom of God." Yu Zhong saw the aircrafts, and his face fell. He already knew that Yao Yao was on her way with 4 thunderfighters, Yet the sudden appearance of 12 could only mean the kingdom of God. Looking at the direction they were flying towards, he came to a conjecture. That's the direction of Yama County, the Shimizu clan. Convey my orders. Everyone is to gather at point 1. Without my orders, no one is to actively go out to fight. Yu Zhong left this line of instructions, and he sprinted by himself towards the direction of the 12 Thunderfighters. Yu Zhong had trained Kyoko and the rest up in order to gain a unit he could trust and use. However, with his strength, they were still not a match for him. Against the kingdom of God, they were not going to be much help either. A single elite troop could wipe them out. Chapter 553. The Viciousness of the Thunderfighter. Chapter 553. The Viciousness of the Thunderfighter. Yu Zhong activated his shadow steps, and his speed reached the limit, exceeding the speed of a Type 2 lightning, even surpassing the Thunderfighters in the sky. The Thunderfighter was a large aircraft, its speed reaching 550 kilometers per hour. However, it had not exceeded the sound barrier, while Yu Zhong's speed had reached 700 kilometers per hour. Of course, Yu Zhong could not maintain that speed for long. After all, he was a biological life form. At most, it was for 10 minutes. However, he managed to chase up to the Thunderfighters. One was significantly larger than the rest by 2 times, loaded with plenty of weapons. Its interior was spacious, as though it was a fortress in the sky. There was a layer of lavish Turkish rugs on the floor, as a blond man with handsome looks stood quietly sipping a glass of wine. There were 2 beautiful and voluptuous Japanese women kneeling by his side, helping to massage his legs. This charming male took another sip before he turned to a bespectacled middle-aged man and asked, "Ashman, does the old man from the Shimizu clan truly possess the Sky Fortress power system and Outer Hull? They don't even have a level 60 evolver. How could they kill a Type 3 beast to obtain such a treasure?" Ashman pushed his glasses up and replied mildly, "Divine Envoy, sir, other than strength in this world, there's luck. Shimazu Fuji was just lucky." The power system diagram exploded out when he expended a large number of experts to kill a Type 3 mutant beast. As for the Outer Hull, he had obtained it by exchanging with 10 beautiful virgins with some evolver. To ordinary evolvers, those diagrams are worthless. This handsome blond man was one of the divine envoys of the kingdom of God, a level 62 spirit evolver, the envoy of ice, Julius. A powerful-looking, beautiful woman with golden hair and an incredibly sexy figure in a silver combat suit appeared as she spoke slowly. "Julius, the Shimizu clan are just ants. They don't deserve 2 envoys to move. I'll be enough to get them to hand the diagrams over obediently." Julius looked at this woman, Suzanne, contemptuously. "Suzanne, Shimazu Fuji is not an idiot. Even if you were to parade your huge ass like a dog for him to fuck, he won't be so stupid as to hand it to you. However, if you were to crawl over here and let me do you, I can give you the chance." Suzanne was a mixed blood of Aryan and Gypsy descent. She wasn't a pure blood Aryan, and although she held a position as one of the divine envoys, she was the lowest rank. Her position and all the resources she received were the lowest. She was also looked down upon by the rest. Gypsy women had the connotations of being prostitutes for a period of time in the Western world. After the apocalypse had happened, due to the prevalent belief of race and superiority, the kingdom of God was led by mainly Aryan people. Mixed blood people like Suzanne were often ostracized or looked down on. Of course, not everyone was a nationalistic Aryan. Otherwise, Suzanne would definitely not have the chance to rise to an envoy status, and would only be treated as a lower caste member of society. When Suzanne heard Julius' words, she stared at him with a venomous hatred, and her hands flipped, causing 2 desert eagles to appear. "Julius, are you hoping to anger me to the point that I shove these desert eagles up your worthless ass and turn it into a pile of minced meat, before I slice that useless thing you call a dick and shove it into your mouth?" Julius flung the wine glass in his hands to one side and stared back at her with a vile gaze and spat out his words. "Suzanne, you bitch. Don't think that just because you got into the beds of those stinky old farts and you can prance in front of me. If you want your 4 limbs to be hacked off and become a sex toy for slaves, you could try pissing me off." When Suzanne heard that, a hint of shock flashed in her eyes, and she gritted her teeth, not replying. Julius was, after all, a pure blood Aryan, and had plenty of envoys backing him up. Even if she was one of the envoys, as long as Julius set his mind to it, she would definitely be tortured till death. Her looks and figure would definitely be more than a treat to those stinky and lowly slaves. While those elders of the kingdom of God who had enjoyed her body would definitely not step out to go against Julius. Ashman then spoke. "Envoys, please maintain your calm and control. Please work together to complete this mission. We cannot fail, otherwise we will all suffer the consequences." Julius snorted coldly. Bunch of ants, not worthy of any attention." Soon, 12 assault helicopters flew out from the Shimizu clan to meet the 12 Thunder Fighters in the air. At the same time, the self-defense force of the Shimizu clan hurried to fire their anti-air missiles towards the threat in the air. The time came for the Thunder Fighters to showcase their prowess. They sent out a few missiles to intercept those from the assault helicopters. Fireworks bloomed in the skies, with resounding explosions, but not a single round managed to hit the Thunder Fighters. On the ground, a number of large anti-air rounds shot towards the Thunder Fights, but ricocheted off the exterior of those mighty mechanical beasts. The 12 Thunder Fighters then fired their own retaliatory rounds, hitting every single one of the self-defense assault helicopters, causing them to explode in huge balls of flames. The Japanese assault helicopters fell towards the ground, char black, before exploding further when they crashed into the ground. The moment the 12 assault helicopters were destroyed, the Thunder Fighters had not even moved from their positions, with only 5 of them suffering small holes in their hulls from the attacks of the troops on the ground. After destroying the assault helicopters of the self-defense force, the Thunder Fighters then fired a number of rockets at the various air defense systems, resulting in multiple explosions. In that fearsome aerial attack, a number of anti-air cars and missile launchers were all turned into scraps of metal. A number of tanks and armored vehicles were also not spared from that volley of fire from the Thunder Fighters. Death rained down from the skies, causing them all to burst into flames. The Shimizu clan was instantly plunged into chaos, as many of the people scrambled around frantically. The Thunder Fighters remained in the air, while collecting the lives of the people like a death god, firing their cannons from time to time. As Yu Zhong hid in the forest, he looked at the destruction and death brought by the Thunder Fighters, and his heart was filled with shock. What a terrifying weapon. This is the true strength of the Thunder Fighters. The Kingdom of God is truly a terrifying organization. Yu Zhong had snatched some Thunder Fighters from the Kingdom of God as well, and he knew the terrifying capabilities of these technologically advanced equipment. However, seeing it up close reminded him of the power that the Kingdom of God truly held. With just 12 Thunder Fights, the Kingdom of God was totally suppressing the Shimizu clan and its self-defense force, just like how the USA had kept Iraq in dire straits by using more advanced weapons. Yu Zhong eyed the Thunder Fighters and thought silently. The Kingdom of God wouldn't just act randomly. The Shimizu clan must have something they need. Is it me, or blueprints of advanced technology? He had killed a number of people from the Kingdom of God, including one of their envoys. He had already been deemed an enemy of theirs, and it was likely that they had discovered his trace in Japan and thus sent forces. He activated his stealth ability and quietly observed. Under the fearsome might of the Thunder Fighters, Yama County finally could not withstand it anymore, and raised a huge white flag. Ashman accepted a phone call before speaking mildly to Julius. "It's done." Julius laughed contemptuously. These low-life Japanese monkeys are truly useless. Here I thought they could last longer. Of the 12 Thunder Fighters that came, 5 descended. A number of adjudicators in silver uniform, as well as judges with golden lions and sword medals on their uniforms, walked out from the four Thunderfighters. They escorted Julius towards the Shimizu clan. As for Suzanne, she stayed where she was, guarding the Thunderfighters. The moment Julius saw Shimizu Fuji, he spoke threateningly. "You must be Shimizu Fuji. I'm Julius, one of the divine envoys of the kingdom of God. Hand over the 2 diagrams of the sky fortress within your possession. Add on 20 beautiful virgins, and swear to join the kingdom of God. You can then live. Otherwise, everyone in your Shimizu clan will perish." "Kazuhiko, it was you." Shimizu Fuji saw a man beside Julius, and his expression turned crestfallen. That man was called Yokoto Kazuhiko, and he was the trusted aide of Shimizu Fuji. He would never have expected his right-hand man to betray him. Chapter 554. Instant Killing Julius. Chapter 554. Instant Killing Julius. Yokota Kazuhiko's complex gaze landed on Shimizu Fuji before he spoke slowly. "Clan Lord Sama, the Chinese has a saying, the smart beast would choose a good tree to perch. The future of this world lies in the hands of the mighty kingdom of God. Only by believing in the one true God, there would be a chance to enter heaven and not hell. I just want to enter heaven after I die." When the world had transformed, every single person on earth had heard the notification of the one that called himself God, and many who had chosen not to believe were forced to accept otherwise. Under such an environment, the might of a religious power could shake the hearts of people. With the heaven sect previously, as well as the kingdom of God, such factions had the draw of faith. Of course, compared to the kingdom of God, the heaven sect was just a pile of mud. Be it the size of their faction, their influence, and the effort in their people, there was no comparison at all. Yokota Kazuhiko spoke up. "Clan Lord Sama, it's impossible for you to resist the divine envoys of the kingdom of God. If you continue to resist, Princess Mina, young Lord Shinsei, Princess Yuka, and young Lord Chuji would be affected by your decision. Your life and death doesn't allow you to retain those diagrams." When Shimizu Fuji heard those words, his face turned ashen, and his entire demeanor seemed as though he aged 20 years. He sighed helplessly and said, "I got it. I will give you the diagrams." Shimizu Fuji came to a small room and tore open a tatami mat, revealing a safe requiring a fingerprint lock and password to unlock. He entered some numbers, pressed his finger, and the safe opened to reveal 2 blueprints. "This should be fine, no? Divine Envoy?" Shimizu Fuji had expended a huge amount of resources to lay his hands on those diagrams. He was clear, regardless of personal strength or military might, he had no mean to contend with Julius and his troops. His Shimizu clan would only face annihilation. In this apocalypse, the weak had to maintain the attitude of the weak. Julius received those, and an enormous amount of information flooded his brain. He smiled with satisfaction. "Not bad. These are the diagrams." Shimizu Fuji continued respectfully. "The 20 beautiful virgins will be arranged to be sent to you. Please wait patiently, divine envoy." Shimizu Fuji had over 20,000 survivors under him. However, it was truly hard to find virgins, even if there were a few. As a form of enticement, he had kept a number of virgins to be traded or gifted. Finding 20 wasn't too much of a problem for him. "There's no need. You can go die now." At this point, Yokota Kazuhiko's eyes flashed with a murderous gaze, and he pulled out the Japanese katana by his waist and slashed downwards, slicing Shimizu Fuji in 2. Shimizu Fuji had been sliced in 2. There was still a look of disbelief on his face, not expecting that blow from someone he had trusted. Julius frowned. "You should have waited until he had given me those virgins." Yokota Kazuhiko turned and bowed at a 45-degree. "Divine Envoy, I can promise you 30 virgins. Furthermore, the 2 princesses are absolute beauties. They're the princesses of the Shimizu clan and definitely higher in quality." "Then I'll leave it to you. Julius spoke arrogantly, before turning and walking away. To Julius, it didn't matter it was Shinzu Fuji or Yokota Kazuhiko. As long as his demands were met, he would be satisfied. Compared to Shimizu Fuji, who he wasn't as familiar with, he trusted Yokota Kazuhiko more. When Julius stepped out of the villa, he suddenly felt a sense of extreme danger. An incredible killing intent billowed towards him. His heart was filled with shock, and he activated his ability at the first instant he could. Unfortunately, the speed of the blade that came slashing down was as swift as a meteor. All Julius saw was that beam of light when his head was instantly separated from his body. There was a look of disbelief on his face. The assassin was naturally Yu Zhong. After disposing of Julius, he swiftly retrieved the 2 blueprints from the corpse, which were the parts of the Sky Fortress. Julius was strong. There was no doubt about that. If it were a frontal assault, Yu Zhong would definitely take some time to kill him, as well as expend a huge amount of spirit and stamina. However, facing a sneak attack from Yu Zhong, it was a different story. Because Julius was a spirit and strength dual attribute evolver. While he was strong, his defense against assassination attempts were weak. The moment Yokota Kazuhito witnessed Julius' unfortunate fate, his face fell, and he quickly tried to escape. Yokota Kazuhito had just ran out the door when a cold light flashed out from a corner, and his head was likewise separated from his body, rolling onto the floor. Yu Zhong saw Yamada Ikiyama stepping out suddenly from the corner, and he instantly went on full alert, emitting a strong, killing intent. "Who are you?" Yamada Ikiyama's strength was not a joke, and it was obvious that he specialized in assassination. To Yu Zhong, if such a person was an enemy, it would be a nightmare to his subordinates. Other than himself, not a single person by his side could withstand a single hit. Yamada Ikiyama bowed before retreating into the darkness. "Yu Zhong-sama, I'm not your enemy. I'm the guardian of the Shimizu clan, Yamada Ikiyama. Since the clan lord had died, I will continue to protect the next Shimizu leader." Yu Zhong frowned slightly. The guardian of a Shimizu clan? It might be troublesome. Otisama. Otisama. Shimazumina and the rest of the Shimizu children came rushing in, together with some of the essential members that had not yet fled. When they saw the 2 halves of Shimizu Fuji, they could not help but wail in sorrow. The Shimizu clan was a large clan prior to the apocalypse. Even after the apocalypse had happened, they made use of their prestige and strength to rescue a large number of people. "It was you. You killed my father, didn't you?" The 22-year-old, ordinary-looking Shimazu Chuji screamed at Yu Zhong with a crazed look and bloodshot eyes. "Yu Zhong, you want to snatch all that our Shimizu clan has, isn't it? Let me tell you, you can forget about it. All that the Shimizu clan has belongs to it forever. You will definitely not take it away." Yu Zhong shot him a cold glare and pulled out his black tooth blade, intending to slash at him. "What a fool! Since you think that it's the case, let me clear the Shimizu clan then. The first to die shall be you." When he was glared at by Yu Zhong, Shimizu Chuji immediately felt fear. His legs gave way, and he crumpled to the floor. "Yu Zhong-sama, please be appeased." A gust of wind blew by, and Yamada Ikiyama appeared again, kneeling in front of Yu Zhong. "Chuji-sama, the one who killed Lord Clan Head was Yokota Kazuhito, not Yu Zhong-sama. That traitor had already thrown his weight in with the kingdom of God and betrayed the Shimizu clan." Yamada Ikiyama knew the disparity of strength between the both of them. If Yu Zhong really set his heart on wiping them out, then the Shimizu clan would truly cease to exist. Shizumina kneeled and also pleaded, "Ato-sama, please be appeased." Chujinaikin was momentarily confused in his anger. He didn't mean what he said. "Watch your stinky mouth." Yu Zhong kept his weapon and stared coldly at Shimizu Chuji. The Shimizu clan was the overlord of the Yama County. If Yu Zhong were to wipe them out, then the entire Yama County would be plunged into chaos. In a short period of time, it would be hard to gather strength to resist the kingdom of God. Yu Zhong shot the people present a glance and said, I'm announcing for Shimamina to be the leader from now on. Does anyone have any objections? Everyone present immediately exchanged glances while keeping quiet. They weren't willing to give up the claims to the Shimazu clan, but in view of Yuzhong on one side and the kingdom of God on the other, they could only keep their silence. Shimazumina was slightly alarmed as she tried to decline. Ado-sama, it's impossible for me. Although Shimazumina was capable, she had not been groomed to take over the reins. She was just a tool to be used as a bargaining chip in Shimazu Fuji's plans. Hearing Yu Zhong's sudden announcement, she was at a loss. Yamada Ikeyama immediately kneeled in front of Shimazumina and spoke seriously. Princess Mina, I, Yamada Ikeyama, am willing to serve you. Please take over the reins of the Shimazu clan. The Yamada family had been serving the Shimazu clan for generations. He wasn't going to be loyal to Yu Zhong, and in order for the Shimazu clan to flourish, handing the reins to Shimazumina was the best choice. After all, she was one of Yu Zhong's women, and he could rely on that bond to get Yu Zhong's help. Yu Zhong patted Shimazumina's shoulder and encouraged, Mina, you can do it. Now, your first task is to get people to suppress the chaos in Sakura Town. The rest, I'll handle for you. Hi, Shimazumina replied gently, and her eyes lit up before she proceeded to give a flurry of orders. Yu Zhong walked out. There were still 7 Thunder Fighters in the air and 5 on the ground. He had to take care of these terrifying metal beasts. Otherwise, Sakura Town was really incapable of facing against such might. Chapter 555, Cluster Bomb. Chapter 555, Cluster Bomb. Near the Thunder Fighters, Suzanne pulled out a cigarette and lit it up. What is that idiot Julius doing? Why is it taking so long? Is he fooling around again? As the smoke rose, her beautiful features were covered in it. Suddenly, she felt her heart palpitate as a dangerous premonition arose. Suzanne was an expert that had undergone the baptism of countless battles. The moment she felt that sense of danger, she had already activated her second-order divine speed, instantly reaching a speed 28 times of a normal person. After she cast it, she twisted forcefully, leaping towards the side. Had she been slower by a single second, her head would have exploded apart like a watermelon. Suzanne looked towards the direction where the stinger bullets came from, only to discover Yu Zhong's icy gaze fixed on her. At the same time, he had waved his hands to take down 5 of the adjudicators. Yu Zhong, this is the guy who killed Halyamanda. Suzanne looked at Yu Zhong and felt a chill over her body. She instantly lost all will to fight and leapt into the Thunder Fighter, shouting, Go! Fly! The pilot responded in shock. Esteemed Envoy Julius has not yet returned. This small team of Thunder Fighter pilots were formed around Julius as the core, so while Suzanne was also a divine envoy, her position was lower. Many did not really view her with high regard. Suzanne's features were contorted in fury as she pointed a desert eagle at his head and barked coldly, Fly up immediately, otherwise I'll blow your fucking brains out. The pilot could feel the cold metal on his head, and his heart tightened, immediately controlling the Thunder Fighter to ascend. You want to escape? Not that easy. Yu Zhong eyed the motors of the Thunder Fighters roaring to life, and his eyes flashed. He activated his shadow steps and burst out with a 700 kilometers per hour speed. He immediately reached the midst of the clearing. Yu Zhong then blasted out with his art of fear, causing a powerful spirit shockwave to spread out. Under that oppressive force, the pilots of the Thunder Fighters were all frightened to death, blood flowing out of their orifices. The ascending Thunder Fighters landed on the ground again, having lost their pilots. On the ground, there were still a dozen adjudicators and judges who were currently pointing their weapons at Yu Zhong and firing insanely. At the same time, a number of wind blades, fireballs, and ice shards were all cast towards Yu Zhong. With his insane speed, other than Suzanne, not a single person could catch up to him. He became a flash of light that weaved in and out of the troops. Everywhere he went, there would a flash of his blade, and the numerous soldiers would be beheaded. As Yu Zhong was engaged in his slaughter, a lithe figure leapt out from the cockpit of the Thunder Fighter as a long and slender leg filled with explosive force aimed towards Yu Zhong's head. Yu Zhong had just killed an adjudicator, and he had no time to defend himself, only able to raise his right hand to block. That powerful kick sent Yu Zhong flying back by over 6 to 7 meters. Suzanne, who was behind that kick, instantly pounced toward Yu Zhong like an enraged leopard, using her insane speed to launch multiple attacks on him. The human's fist traveled faster than a person running. Having activated her second-order divine speed, Suzanne's speed had reached 28 times that of a normal person. Without holding anything back, her kicks reached Mach speed, and each blow of hers carried sonic booms with them. Yu Zhong had to deal with the blows raining on him after being sent flying back a few meters. He didn't panic, instead, relying on his abundant combat experience to negate the effects of each strike by Suzanne. With his endurance reaching 194 points and his passive skill steel body, his defenses were not weak. Suzanne felt like she was kicking a metal board each time her blows landed. After lashing out over a dozen times, her legs were the ones that seemed to be bleeding. She quickly leaped back, eyeing Yu Zhong in shock. Damn it, his body is too tough. What a fearsome opponent. Other than those divine envoys ranked 1st to 10th, no one is a match for him. Suzanne instantly abandoned everything and her subordinates and sought to escape. In this short exchange, she had come to experience Yu Zhong's might for herself, and she wasn't willing to fall at his hands. Seeing that Suzanne wanted to escape, Yu Zhong immediately launched an Art of Fear attack towards her. She was an agility-based evolver, and her spirit wasn't high. She was instantly thrown into a hallucination, causing her to lose control of herself, and she crumpled to the ground. Quick run! The moment they saw Suzanne fall, the faces of the adjudicators and judges drained of color as they turned around to escape. Yu Zhong stepped forwards once when he suddenly felt something amiss and swiftly retreated backwards. The 7 Thunder Fighters in the air had flown over as a number of rockets fired towards Yu Zhong's general position. Honk! 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 Terrifying explosions blasted all around Yu Zhong, and the shockwaves and resulting shrapnel bombarded his body, having to bear the brunt of the aftermath. If Yu Zhong's endurance wasn't enough, he would have been pulverized by that bout of attacks earlier. However, he still didn't underestimate the devastation of the attacks, choosing to dodge and evade whatever he could. As long as a rocket landed on him, he would still be blasted apart regardless of his endurance. In the skies, the 7 Thunder Fighters then switched to their 25mm Gatling guns and began to spray at Yu Zhong. Fuck! He had to run. In a few breaths, he reached one of the fallen Thunder Fighters and leaped behind. Making use of the hull of the Thunder Fighters to block against the attacks from the Gatling guns, he could finally take a breather. After he managed to find cover, 8 guided missiles found their way towards that Thunder Fighter in a flash and caused it to explode in a ball of fire. Yu Zhong had leaped to one side at the first moment, but the Thunder Fighters were filled with countless weaponry. The next instant, he felt the shock waves from the explosion and was sent flying out a few meters. His left arm was broken, and his outer clothing had been ripped to pieces, revealing the pitch-black Type 3 mutant beast hide underneath. Even the terrifying defense of the Type 3 mutant beast hide was laced with a few scratches and cuts from the countless hits Yu Zhong had just experienced. The Type 3 mutant beast hide was known to be impervious to knives and bullets. However, it cannot block the impact of rockets. The powerful explosions were enough to tear the hide apart. Yu Zhong felt a stab of pain in his chest, and he spat out a mouth of blood, his face pale, strong, too overwhelming. Such a weapon of war, amongst humankind, it's still difficult to defend against. The Thunder Fighters were like tanks in the air. Even the Falcon sniper had no means of penetrating the hull. As for anti-tank rocket rounds, it was hard to hit the Thunder Fighters in the air. In this apocalyptic world now, They were seemingly invincible. The attacks of the Thunder Fighters caused layers of dust to cover the area, blocking the sight of the Thunder Fighters for a moment. At that moment, Yu Zhong immediately conjured up 2 Devil Flame spears in his hands and sent them shooting straight for 2 of the Thunder Fighters. The fearsome flame instantly incinerated the pilots of the 2 Thunder Fighters and combusted in the cockpits, destroying various vital functions. With the loss of pilots, the soldiers within those 2 Thunder Fighters immediately deployed their parachutes, moments before the 2 Thunder Fighters crashed towards the ground, although they did not explode. As a new generation aircraft, the Thunder Fighter had the capability to withstand rockets. They would be able to land safely even after receiving a few rounds. Having dealt with those 2 Thunder Fighters, the remaining 5 Thunder Fighters seemed to fire even more crazily at Yu Zhong. They continued to hover above his positions at all times as they sent cluster bombs down. Honk, honk, honk. A number of cluster bombs exploded powerfully, and a scorching heat wave enveloped the entire area, as the resulting shrapnel and flames obliterated everything in the blast radius. Inside the blast radius, the adjudicators, judges, and any other biological life forms unfortunate enough to be caught within it were annihilated totally. Even the unconscious divine envoy Suzanne had been blasted to pieces. The cluster bomb had been internationally prohibited from use in war prior to the apocalypse due to its devastating nature. However, in this apocalypse, there was no United Nations, and hence no one would control the usage of such weapons. The cluster bombs were one of the weapons the Kingdom of God had approved to use against high-level evolvers, because the might of these weapons were truly strong. Even the 12 apostles might not necessarily be able to escape from the vicinity of these cluster bombs. Chapter 556. Destroy the Thunder Fighters. Chapter 556. Destroy the Thunder Fighters. The blast radius of the cluster bomb was extremely wide. Even someone as strong as Yu Zhong had no means of escaping from it quickly. He had instantly activated his shield of light. Amidst the explosions of the cluster bomb, the shield was only able to hold up for about 2 seconds before disintegrating. The moment it shattered, Yu Zhong had sent out another 2 Devil Flame spears towards 2 other Thunder Fighters in the skies. His attacks pierced through the pilot's cockpit and immediately killed the pilots. When the pilots of the 2 Thunder Fighters were killed, the metal-killing machines also wobbled before crashing toward the ground. After the shield crumbled, Yu Zhong activated another shield of light, forcefully withstanding the explosions of the lethal cluster bombs. He made use of the chance when he was protected to quickly conjure yet another 2 Devil Flame spears, sending them shooting straight for 2 other Thunder Fighters. As the pilots were incinerated to death, the Thunder Fighters began to descend. Having destroyed 4 Thunder Fighters in 5 seconds with 4 Devil Flame spears, as well as the activation of the Shield of Light twice, Yu Zhong was nearly expended of all his strength. The pilot of the remaining Thunder Fighter saw his comrades shot down, and he finally felt a sense of fear and danger. He tried to maneuver the Thunder Fighter around in a bid to escape. Get the hell down. Yu Zhong conjured one final Devil Flame spear and threw it out with all his strength, as the spear shot towards the rotating blades like a shooting star, melting them. As the blades melted and started to deform, the Thunder helicopter lost its stability and began to plunge towards the ground. Yu Zhong watched the last Thunder Fighter fall to the ground and let out a long sigh of relief. The pressure emitted by the Thunder Fighters was truly suffocating. Fortunately, it had been a small team of 12 of them. If it were a fleet of 36 of them, then even someone as strong as him would be decimated in a second. Yu Zhong's might was steadily climbing. Even handguns and rifles posed no threat to him now. However, rockets, cannons, guided missiles, or any other heavy artillery for that matter could still threaten him. Seeing the Thunder Fighters crash down one by one, the survivors in Sakura Town also began to cheer in delight. Those machines were like Death Reapers, with their powerful firearms. Under their attacks, the entire Sakura town almost went into chaos, and various structures were in varying degrees of damage and destruction. Over 2,000 survivors had died at the assault of those Thunder Fighters, mainly because of the might of the cluster bombs. Even after the Thunder Fighters' fleet had been brought down, Sakura town was still burning, and the Japanese survivors were naturally enraged and hated those weapons of destruction. Shimazumina demonstrated her capability and charm, swiftly organizing a team of enhancers under the Shimazu clan to quickly suppress the chaos and the soldiers from the Kingdom of God that had parachuted down. One by one, the adjudicators and judges were either captured or killed. At the same time, another elite troops entered Sakura town to persecute those survivors that had tried to make use of the chaos to commit atrocities as well. These rioters were quickly killed. As the situation came under control, this time, four Thunder Fighters appeared in the distance. The warriors of the Shimazu clan saw the Thunder Fighters and their faces fell. There were some people who even directly threw down their weapons and prepared to run. The hearts of the people that had just settled down were quickly riled up again, as a number of survivors tried to run out of Sakura town. The Thunder Fighters were Death Reapers, and four were enough to wipe out the town entirely. Although there were a few experts who were capable of destroying the metal behemoths, the ordinary survivors were still afraid. Yu Zhong watched the approaching four Thunder Fighters, and his expression turned ugly. The two shield of lights on his body had been expended, and he only had the bronze spiritual bell left. In order to destroy those four Thunder Fighters, he would be in extreme danger. Wait for? Could it be Yao Yao and the rest? Yu Zhong eyed those Thunder Fighters and swiftly made his way to the wall around Sakura town and stood at a prominent spot. With the bronze spiritual bell as his final protection treasure, he didn't mind risking it to confirm the identity of those four Thunder Fighters. A strong gust of wind blew past, as a green eagle with a wingspan of over 80 m, like something out of the legends, flew out. With a single flap, it reached the city walls with a speed that broke the sound barrier. This massive green eagle was precisely greeny. Under the supplements of those nuclei, it had already evolved to its Type 3 stage, reaching level 80. The moment Greeny reached the city wall, it used its head to rub against Yu Zhong affectionately. As Yu Zhong's first tamed beast, it had grown from its hatchling stage to a Type 3 mutant beast. Therefore, it felt a lot closer to Yu Zhong than the rest of his tamed mutant beasts. Where's Sis Qingwu? The moment Yao Yao leaped down from Greeny's back, she stepped forwards to question Yu Zhong. She's heavily injured and is currently recuperating here. Yu Zhong pointed to the biological armor on his back, replying Yao Yao, before asking a question of his own. What took you guys so long? Yu Zhong knew that they had set off from Guangxi about 14 days ago, yet they had only reached now, which was unexpected. Let's not talk about that. We met a whole bunch of aerial mutant beasts along the way. In order to route around them, we wasted so much time. Give me Sis Qingwu. I'll protect her. Yao Yao just brushed off Yu Zhong's question and stared fixedly on the biological armor on Yu Zhong's back. Truthfully, the journey in the air over the seas had been a lot more difficult than what Yao Yao described. The team had come across a few waves of aerial mutant beasts and were assaulted by them. If it weren't for the powerful defenses of the Thunder Fighters, as well as Greeny protecting them as one of the tyrants in the skies, the team would have been wiped out. Furthermore, the maximum distance that the Thunder Fighter could travel at one time was 2,000 kilometers. In order to reach Japan, they had to unload much of their equipment, instead filling the space with fuel. If they were attacked along the way, they could have exploded from the sheer amount of fuel. It was truly dangerous. Yu Zhong hesitated a while before handing the biological armor on his back over to Yao Yao. The four Thunder Fighters came to a stop, and a number of experts above level 40 stepped out. They were led by Xiao Sheng. When the armed militants saw the elite soldiers of the Special Forces stepping out from the Thunder Fighters, their eyes flashed with awe. Every single soldier of the Special Forces were decked in the Raven combat uniform and wore high-level mutant beast hide. They carried sniper rifles, assault rifles, hand grenades, and Tang replica swords hung at their waists. They were truly armed to the teeth. They emitted incredible killing intent, which was cultivated from their countless battles. Bai Xiaosheng came up to Yu Zhong with a grin on his face as he saluted. "Boss Yu," Bai Xiaosheng, reporting for duty. After saluting Yu Zhong, he reverted to his thick-skinned nature. "Boss, I heard that these Japanese beauties are really submissive. Give me a few." "Huh? Are you sure you can handle so many?" Yu Zhong eyed him and replied dryly. Bai Xiaosheng was not known for anything but his love for beautiful women. Following Yu Zhong, he had experienced countless combat, and his only requests had always been women, and only beautiful ones at that. Furthermore, he was a high-ranking subordinate of Yu Zhong, and had obtained many women, thus forming a huge harem. When Bai Xiaosheng heard that, he also sighed. "True, it's troublesome to have too many women. My resources are always wiped out quickly." Bai Xiaosheng had over 100 women in his harem, and the upkeep was truly staggering. If it wasn't for the fact that he was a high ranker under Yu Zhong, he could not keep up with their resources. Even then, it was quite a responsibility to be in charge of 100 women. Bai Xiaosheng hesitated, and with a pained expression, he spoke out. "All right, this time, I'll just want 5 Japanese beauties. I can't handle any more already. Then it will depend on your performance." Yu Zhong didn't continue this line of small talk as he resumed to business. "When you guys arrived, was the horde moving towards here?" Bai Xiaosheng's expression also turned serious. "That's right, boss. When we came, the sea of zombies was currently making its way here. In another 4 hours, they would reach here. I reckon that we should replenish our food and fuel and quickly get out of here. With the defenses here, it won't be enough to hold off the onslaught of the zombies." Sakura Town had just come out an assault by the Kingdom of God. There were burning debris everywhere, and various fortifications and constructed defenses had been destroyed. Over 2,000 survivors had also perished under the assault by the Kingdom of God, and another 3,000 had tried to escape the town. Although there were about 15,000 survivors left in town, the true soldiers that could fight numbered only about 1,000 or so. These soldiers included the 100 over Chinese survivors, as well as reinforcements from Bai Xiaosheng's forces. A team of 1,000 against a few 100,000 zombies, without any fortifications or preparations and defenses. It was basically impossible without sufficient firepower. The most important thing was that Yu Zhong has no reason to fight to the death. This was Japan and not China. Even if the place was overrun, he just had to bring his Chinese survivors away and leave. Yu Zhong found Mina and said, "The zombies of Yama County are currently moving here. Sakura Town is a lost cause. Follow me. Mina, come with me to China." Mina immediately kneeled down and begged, "Ado-sama, I cannot just abandon the rest and come with you. These are the people who place their trust and lives in the hands of our Shimazu clan. If I were to go, half the survivors in Sakura Town would die. Please save them. I know that you're a man of miracles. You'll definitely have ways to save them." Better tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.